Yeah, you're live.
Great. Mr. Chairman, we are live on YouTube if you'd like to begin the meeting.
All right, it's 5:59, but that's close enough, I suppose. All right, folks, here goes. Meeting will come to order. Tonight is March 10th, 2021, and this is the Historic Resources Preservation Board regular meeting. Could we get the roll call, please?
Certainly. Judith Fox. Judy, unmute. Orsa. Okay. Chip.
I'm here.
William Feldkamp.
Here.
Stephen Pickett.
Here.
Jeff Harris.
Here.
Bob Dorenzo.
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum.
Wonderful. Could we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America
and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated. Thank you. And I understand we have additions, deletions, and reordering tonight.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Chairman. This is Jordan Hodges for the record. I had them listed under withdrawals and postponements, but we can go ahead and do those. I did speak with the applicant for item B this evening, and he and the applicant and their agent have decided to withdraw this application, and they are going to seek a certificate of appropriateness administratively. So we can strike item B from the list. And then one new item under planning issues. So it would be a new item D, and that is going to be a conceptual review for 222 South Lakeside Drive.
Lakeside. Thank you very much. Is that it for the changes?
That's it, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Do we need to vote on that, or is that just is?
Approve the agenda as amended, I guess.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the agenda as changed. All in favor?
I'll second that.
Seconded. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. Can I get an approval of the minutes of the last meeting?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Yeah. Second.
Second by Mr. Pickett. All in favor, aye.
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 And those are all approved. Swearing in of staff and applicants.
All
Ms.
right,
Cole,
so start moving everyone.
Mr. Chairman, please give us a moment and we will promote all of the applicants to panelists. If the applicants can all turn on their cameras and turn on their microphones so that you can swear, so that you can be sworn in.
I think we have everyone.
We're waiting on Mr. Hutchins and Jamie to turn on their cameras and unmute themselves.
Yeah, I'm trying to do that right now. No,
If it's not working, we can swear you in prior to your item.
there I am. Sorry about that.
I have two other persons that are not unmuted, and it would be there we go. And Garrett Scheffler, if you're giving testimony, thank you. Please raise your right hand. Everyone who's giving testimony, please raise your right hand. Do you swear and affirm the testimony you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say yes.
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 Thank you.
All right,
Yes.
right now I'll be promoting everyone back.
All right, thank you for that. We have proof of publication.
Yes, provided.
And we've gone through the withdrawals and postponements. Board disclosures, starting on my right.
I have none to disclose.
I, as always, visited the different properties.
I have nothing to disclose.
Nothing to disclose.
Then Mr. Dorinzo
Nothing to disclose.
and Ms. Fox.
Nothing to disclose.
There you go. All righty. Well, then I guess we are into new business. Item A. Mr. Hodges, you want to take it away?
Mr. Fogel will be taking over this item. I will be next on item C. So Abe, are you ready?
Yeah, just a second. I was moving people over. Let's make sure. All right, I just want to make sure everyone's looking. Do I have the right screen on, Jordan?
You do.
You do.
Okay, thank you guys. All right, so good evening. I'm Abraham Fogel, Preservation Planner for the City of Lake Worth Beach. We're starting today with item A, which is a certificate of appropriateness for the partial enclosure of a carport, construction of a new plus or minus 72 square foot carport extension, construction of a new plus or minus 90 square foot addition, and window and door replacement for the single family residence at 1209 North L Street. So the property owner, as I mentioned, is requesting that partial carport enclosure to accommodate a new master suite. The existing carport is getting extended. There's also a dining room addition on the south side of the property and window and door replacement. The subject property is a 50 by 135 platted lot of record located on the west side of North Ocean Breeze between 12th Avenue North and 13th Avenue North in Lake Worth Beach. The property is located in the single family residential zoning district, retains a future land use designation of single family residential, and is a contributing resource to the Northeast Lucerne Local Historic District. A little bit of property background. Within our property file, we were able to locate the original architectural drawings from 1950, designed by locally renowned architect Ldr Wortman in a mid-century modern architectural style. The architectural drawings for the structure illustrate a one-story residence of masonry construction with a smooth stucco exterior finish, built-up shed and flat roofs, carport with exposed block columns, steel 8-light and 6-light casement windows, and jalousie doors. This property also has a unique entrance, which features a trapezoidal shaped steps with a mirroring overhang and raised planter beds. Here we have some photos of the property. According to our permit records, it's had alterations over time, including permits for several concrete slabs on the property, roof replacement, fencing, and electrical upgrades. In 1959, 8 awning windows were installed, and in 1992, a flat roof covering was installed over the concrete slab on the south side of the property. Here we have some additional photos provided by the applicant for the rear and for the side, and here you can see that flat roof extension I mentioned. Here's a property survey where you can see those different areas where concrete slabs were installed, the concrete driveway. In green, you can see the footprint of the existing home. And we also have here the carport outline and where that flat roof extension is located. A little bit small, but here we can see in the site plan the different changes proposed. So essentially, a portion of that carport is being enclosed to accommodate a new master suite. And the carport is getting an extension. On the south side, there's a new dining room addition. In the rear, there's a new parking space being installed. which is a little bit longer than usual. Per our code, when you're backing out into an alley, you need at least 20 feet of a back out, but that includes the alley. And for the most part, our alleys are 10 feet. So in essence, that means your parking space is about 10 feet longer than that 9 by 18, which is 9 by 28. So moving on to our zoning analysis, the proposed partial enclosure of the existing carport and additions are consistent with all site data requirements in the city's land development regulations. The application as proposed meets the minimum off-street parking requirements, which is a minimum of 2 off-street parking spaces, impermeable surface requirements, building lot coverage allotments, and required building setbacks. There's a little bit of a nonconformity in the front yard due to that large driveway, but that's existing and there's no changes proposed to that area with this application. So moving on to the elevation drawings. The east elevation is the front. As you can see on the left side is where that dining room addition is being proposed. We also have a vertical wood screen feature, which on the next elevations, you'll be able to see a little bit better. Here we have the partially enclosed carport, which is getting a new horizontal sliding window. And here's where that carport is getting extended. Again, on the side elevation, you'll be able to see that extension a little bit better. As I mentioned, the home currently has a mix of those replacement awning windows and single hung windows. I believe none of the original steel casement windows remain. And we can also see that door replacement is proposed with these full view French doors. Also here on the rear, it's worth noting the majority of the windows and doors are existing, will be replaced within existing openings. A deviation from that is here in the rear, window opening is being expanded to accommodate a pair of French doors. So moving on to the south elevation, here's a better view of that vertical wood screen feature, which is very prevalent for mid-century modern structures. Here on the north is where we can really see how that carport is being extended. We can see that that column is being replicated and continuing that roof line. And the only other alteration and openings that we have with this proposal is right here on the south elevation, and I'll kind of walk you through it on the next slide with the floor plan. So here you can really see where the carport is being extended, and the two deviations and openings that I mentioned. Here is that window would create a conflict with the location of the kitchen, and the other change in opening is where we have those French doors in the rear. So for our visual compatibility analysis, I'll very quickly go through the different aspects of the request. All additions and exterior alterations to structures within a designated historic district are subject to visual compatibility criteria. Staff has reviewed the documentation and materials provided in this application and outlined the applicable guidelines and standards. That was provided on pages 5 to 8 of your staff report, and it has our responses to it. So beginning with the carport, partial enclosure of the carport will result in an important change to the structure's appearance, but the applicant has taken consideration of these concerns and worked closely with staff to arrive at the current design, which tries to minimize the visual impact of that proposal. And that's why we're seeing that carport extension, which is mitigating for the portion of the carport that's being enclosed for that enlarged master bedroom. As I mentioned, it will carry over the masonry columns and the flat roof. And also it will maintain that vehicular use from North L Street, which is how the property was historically designed. We can also see that the addition included appropriately sized windows. And it also carried over a French, that full view French door that's proposed throughout the property. So overall, it's designed to be consistent with the property and incompatible with the mid-century modern architectural style. Next, we'll talk about that dining room addition. It is designed with a, my pointer here, a reveal line of about 6 inches. That creates a differentiation between the new and the old, which we recommended the applicant do. It also has a flat roof line that will create differentiation from the shed roof that goes over the main massing of the structure. It's utilizing an appropriately sized casement window, and the applicant's also proposing that vertical wood screen feature. The proposed window replacement includes full view aluminum impact casement and horizontal sliding windows. As proposed, it's not really replicating those original casement windows we saw in the architectural plans or the replacement awning windows. Here we have the section on windows and doors for mid-century modern structures from our design guidelines. As you can see, casement windows and awning windows were very prevalent for this architectural style. We do see that certain properties also had full view windows. However, that's not how this structure was originally designed. So on the next couple slides, we've outlined some recommendations that we included with your packet if this proposal were to replicate either the casement or the awning. These changes are only to the grids or muttons. The existing casement and horizontal slider window types would not need to be changed. So starting with the front facade, we can see it was originally designed with 8 light casements. So by adding muttons, you'd be able to replicate that with that original window. Again, the window and the addition and the enclosed carport are new, but they are carrying over the proportions, the original opening proportions, so that can be carried over. If that were to be done to replicate awnings, you would only need to add horizontal muttons or grids to replicate those awning windows. On the east elevation, we also see those 8 light windows being carried over, so it would be pretty much the same thing. You could replicate those 8 lights with the grids or the 4 light awning windows. That's what it would proportionally be. The north elevation had a mix of 8 light and 6 light. So if you were to replicate that, same thing. And with the awnings, that would translate to 4 light and 3 light windows. On the south elevation, that's where that windows would be in conflict with the kitchen. That's where they've asked for the reduction. So proportionally, it would become a 6 light or a 3 light awning window. Lastly, they're also proposing a very minor site modification, which is that new driveway in the rear. For our historic preservation analysis, we find it appropriate as it's adding additional parking where it's least visible from the street. So in conclusion, the proposed application as conditioned is consistent with the city's land development regulations, historic preservation ordinance, and the Lake Worth Beach Historic Preservation Design Guidelines. Therefore, staff recommends approval with conditions to allow the partial enclosure of the carport additions and window and door replacement. Here we have our conditions of approval. The majority of them are standard and relate to, having your window replacement and door replacement with within your original openings, with those 2 exceptions that we mentioned, regulating the glass type and the frame material. The one that is unique here is number 2. If I go back to even here, you can see the elevation drawings have a sill detail drawn on them. The property currently does not have a sill detail and it was not designed that way. So we've just added that condition that this sill detail be removed from the elevations. And moving on to our next conditions, whenever we have additions, regarding number 6, we want to ensure that the stucco textures carried over. Number 7, we're requesting detailed drawings of that vertical wood screen feature subject to staff review at permitting. Number 8, that the rear driveway shall maintain a minimum 1 foot setback from side property lines. Number 9 is just a little bit of cleanup. Once this comes through permitting, we want to ensure that the required existing and proposed data and their site calculations are clearly delineated. And number 10 pertains to the windows. So we're maintaining the option that they could replicate their 8-light or 6-light windows, or replicate 4-light and 3-light awning windows, subject to staff at permitting, and that all those divided light patterns are created with exterior raised muttons. That concludes staff's presentation, and the applicant is with us tonight. Let me transfer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vogel. The applicant is here, I see.
Yes, and let me put the slides back up as well.
Abe, did the applicant have design professionals associated with this project?
So it is the applicant with us, Corey, I believe.
The applicant is here, Corey, is that correct? Or can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, so let me know if you want me. I can go back to the elevations too.
All right. Does the applicant have anything else to add to Mr. Vogel's presentation?
So I'm the contractor. I'm here with Anthony Moran, who's the homeowner. So we are in agreement with everything Abe and I have worked back and forth. The only issue that we had at one point was having to use the 1950s drawings because my architect had passed away right in the middle of this project. But other than that, I think everything that Abe went over is the same that we went over. The only concern that we have is with the windows, with having the 3-panel or 4-panel with the horizontal muntins. That would be a better option for our project if we're not able to do a full view without muntin.
All right. Now we go into questions only from board members. Who wants to start?
Do we have a detail of what sort of muntins are going to be used on these vinyl windows?
At this point, we're requesting a full view with no muntins. And that was something that I was previously spoke with Abe that we would have to, come about with this. We did do research in other streets that are within a 1 or 2 block radius of this property. And there are a lot of them that have either horizontal rollers or casements or fixed glass with no muntins. That would be our number 1 wish for approval. But if we have to go the muntin route, we would like to do the horizontal only.
Okay, well, that answered one of my questions. Maybe let me go next. The purpose of the lengthened carport, it still does not quite protect an entire car, does it?
Yes, sir, it will. And again, there are some addresses that we found in the city that have not increased the carport space and also have not removed the driveway from the front, which I was told that that's a requirement for the historical for the Northeast Lucerne local. So that's why we've talked about bringing it out. It'll bring it out about somewhere between the 9 and 10 foot mark, which we should be able to fit a vehicle under.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'm not unhappy with it. I just wanted to know whether you could get a car under it.
Yeah.
The wood screen, which again is a nice 1950s touch, is there a purpose for it other than visual? Is it structural?
No, it's just going to be a visual aspect. The kind of this property has a larger soffit, has a 2'6" soffit, and just being that sticks off more than a traditional now 18 to 24 inch soffit. My client has researched and likes the look of that kind of ending the property because we're getting rid of the decorative wall there with the decorative top. So it's kind of something just to kind of give a little bit of ending to the property and not having such a large soffit.
Okay. Yeah, I saw originally you had that wall extending, I guess, to the property line.
Currently, it does extend to the property line, correct?
The window grills and the hurricane shutter on the front, are they all coming off or going
Yep.
back?
No, they will all come off. They're gonna be replaced with new PGT vinyl impact rated windows. So there'll be no need for any secondary hurricane protection.
Okay. Then my last item is less a question than a hope. You have that 6-inch recessed section on the front facade. And one thing that would be nice about that, as you get into paint colors, is to have a slightly different shade of whatever color you're going to use.
If I can share my screen, I do have a small presentation. Abe touched on most of it, but I can skip to the last of it and I'll show you the color scheme that we wanted to do. We wanted to do a different color for the additions than we did with the regular existing building. Bear with me, I'm not a, it says host has disabled screen sharing.
So we typically don't, that's why we requested in advance.
Actually,
Okay.
this would work here. So,
Problem solved.
So right here would be the patio, excuse me, the addition for the dining room. And then this would be the addition for the master bedroom. So that would be what they call, it's a Sherwin-Williams paint color. It is gray area. So it's a really light gray. And then the remaining portion of the existing house would be proposed as a simple white, which is just a basic white. And then all of the trim everywhere around the house is like a chocolatey brown. It's the current color that's on there now, Sherwin-Williams rockweed. And then the front door would be just a black door.
Excellent. Questions from other members? I'm sorry to hog the screen.
George, Abraham, can you show me, there was an issue with what is going to end up being the kitchen window. And I didn't quite get what the significance of is it changing in size or location in order to accommodate being right over the kitchen sink? Is that what the issue is?
He's on mute.
Sorry. It's not so much an issue that we just want to point out, since the majority of the window replacement is happening within existing openings. We're just mentioning that in that location on the south side, it's shrinking a little bit, but still proportionally because of the kitchen.
For a second, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
What we're doing is it's because that used to be a bedroom. So that height is at what was egress at the time. Now that we're transforming that to a kitchen with the countertop height of 36, we just need to, we're not shortening the width, but more of the height. That way it doesn't go down below the countertop itself.
And the top of the window will it looks like it's the same
Everything
elevation
will,
as the top of the door.
Correct. All of the upper elevations will maintain consistency throughout the whole house. It's just going to be a shorter window.
And I guess I'm sure this is apparent to everybody else, but what happens to the flat roof line that goes over, I believe it's the south elevation that covers that patio? Does that stay there?
That's currently a insulated aluminum structure.
Okay.
We're proposing to reduce it at the section of the addition and remain intact in the rear position of the house.
Okay. And then Abraham, just one other thing. At the very beginning of your presentation, you said something about ocean breeze, and I saw it on the screen too, but it's not.
Oh, I'm sorry, North L Street. We're on North L Street.
And just for the record, I mean, because that was mentioned at the very beginning of the presentation.
I apologize. We're on North L Street.
Other than that, I believe, it looks to be like you're really trying to keep the historic nature of the house, and I think you're doing a very good job.
Thank you.
Questions from Mr. DiRenzo or Ms. Fox?
No, you covered mine. Oh, shoot. You covered mine with the little wall going across over there that you're taking down.
No other questions? Is there any public comment?
No, we have no public comment that has been, there's been none received.
Okay.
On the topic.
So as I understand it, we are leaving it to the applicant to go for either the grid or the awning window variety, and not the option of going with the full light divisions. Is that correct?
If I may, Abraham, you said that there are other, I mean, the applicant has also stated, but you say there are other applications in the area where people have not used grids at all and go with the full open windows. Sort of like the lower right hand.
So, so I think we're making a distinction. So we always try to replicate the original or existing. So this property is unique. So we know it started off with casements, then it went to awnings. Both were common for this style. So that's why our recommendation was going there. Yes, we see some full view examples. That would be more in the realm if you as a board felt like that was an architecturally compatible alternative. So you're kind of going from, let's replicate that original or existing, and let's see if, we find it appropriate to go with an alternative, which I think is what the applicant's talking about.
That was why I was curious about the mutton bar detail for those vinyl windows. My personal feeling is I would prefer to not have that on there because I just think mutton bars look horrible. I mean, they're just applied and they just don't cut it. I think the window just as a solid unit, as a full light unit will look much better than trying to put applied mutton bars on it.
I'd have to agree with that.
And I don't have a problem with removing the muntins.
Mr. Dorinzo, Ms. Fox?
So just a reminder, in your motion, you will need to state that you're finding them to be architecturally appropriate to the style, because that's the finding that you all need to make as the board, is that they're consistent with the mid-century style as a recommended alternative replacement.
That would be condition number what?
So that would be striking condition number 10.
10. The verbiage would be what?
I
Striking
think it wouldn't be in your condition, but Aaron's just saying in your motion just to substantiate why you found that appropriate.
You would just say what Abe said is that that you make a motion to approve the project with staff conditions, amending condition number, which one is it? Condition
10.
number 10,
Striking
to
10.
allow for a full light window, as the full light window is architecturally appropriate for the mid-century style.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that.
Is there any more discussion or can I hear a motion?
Can I offer a motion? I move to approve Hrpb project number 21-001-00031 with staff recommended conditions for certificate of appropriateness, striking condition number 10, finding that the board feels that the full view windows without muntins is appropriate for the period mid-century modern. For the partial enclosure of the carport, construction of a new plus or minus 72 square foot carport extension, construction of a new plus or minus 90 square foot dining room addition, and window and door replacement for the single family residence located at 1209 North L Street based on the competent substantial evidence in the staff report pursuant to the City of Lake Worth Beach land development regulations and the historic preservation requirements.
Can I get a second?
I will second that.
Seconded by Mr. Harris. Any additional discussion? If not, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Hearing none. The project is approved.
Unanimous.
All righty.
Congratulations.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nice project. Well done. We like it.
so much.
All right, let's move on to item C. Mr. Hodges, if you'd like to present it.
One moment, let me get set up here. Is that the correct screen, Abraham?
You're good.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, so good evening. For the record, again, this is Jordan Hodges, Senior Preservation Coordinator for the City of Lake Worth Beach, and I'll be presenting this item before you tonight. Item C is a certificate of appropriateness for window and door replacement for the property located at 615 7th Avenue North. And the property is a contributing resource within the Northeast Lucerne Local Historic District, and it is located in the SFTF 14 zoning district. So again, the structure is located on a parcel. It's a pretty narrow parcel fronting North K Street to the west and 7th Avenue North to the north. And it is a single family residence. You can see it here outlined in red. The documentation in the structure's property file indicates that the building was constructed in 1924 in a Mission Revival architectural style. And although the architectural drawings are not available, property card from 1943 does indicate that the structure is a framed construction with a stucco exterior and features a flat roof, jalousie windows, which were very early replacement products in 1943, and a chimney. But in 1994, there was also a large addition that was constructed to the west side of the property. And this addition was designed in a more modern style with a flat roof and smooth stucco exterior. And it has single hung windows that was really, kind of marked a a departure from the traditional Mission Revival architectural style of the historic portion of the building. In 2001, window openings were enclosed and rearranged on the front facade facing 7th Avenue North to create the current pair of windows on either side of the front door. City permit records also indicate that the structures had additional alterations over time, including window and door replacement, roof replacement. It's had storm shutter installation, some fencing, and then mechanical and electrical upgrades. But due to substantial and somewhat insensitive alterations over time, the structure has a moderate to low degree of the integrity of settings, material, design, location, workmanship, feeling, and association. You can see on the photos here, that is from that 2001 permit where the windows were being relocated. But this is the property as it sits today. And the property owner is requesting a certificate of appropriateness for window and door replacement. And if approved, the subject application would allow the replacement of the existing windows and doors with new CGI aluminum impact single hung and horizontal sliding windows. Also a pair of Plas Pro fiberglass impact French doors and a Plas Pro fiberglass impact raised panel door with a glass insert. And also a new fiberglass rear door. The windows are proposed with exterior raised divided light patterns and gray tinted glass. On November 16th of 2020, 2020, historic preservation staff received a building permit application for the window and door replacement. But staff reviewed the application and disapproved the request on November 30th, as the permit application did not include a certificate of appropriateness application, photos, window and door replacement plan, or glass specifications. The subsequent resubmittal was also failed by staff, as the window and door replacement did not meet our historic preservation requirements as outlined in this report. Staff recommended that the project be reviewed by the Hrpb, as the request could not be approved administratively. I will note here that the applicant has indicated that the replacement products have already been purchased. But it appears from the current state of the building that the stucco around the windows have already been somewhat partially removed, likely due to water infiltration, but I'll let the applicants get into that. But this is the front facade. As you can see, there are pairs of single hung windows flanking the door. And on the east facade, there really is no fenestration on that facade. This is the rear of the structure. You can kind of see a few windows peeking over the fence, and you can also get a glimpse of the rear door, which is currently a raised 6-panel door. So I'll briefly walk through the plan here and highlight the areas that are in conflict with our historic preservation requirements. Firstly, the applicant is proposing to replace the building's 8 windows in their existing openings, although the openings will likely have to be reframed due to some water infiltration and deterioration. But you can see the window openings highlighted in yellow, and they're proposing to use windows with gray glass, which is not an administratively approvable option. The structure does currently have windows with light gray glass, but a full window replacement proposal requires compliance with new regulations. And per the applicant's submittal packet, the proposed windows have a VT of 35%. Now, a measurement of the visual light transmittance from the center of glazing was not submitted, but the requested gray glass is not in compliance with current regulations, which state that a 70% VLT as measured from the center of glazing be met. The applicant has proposed in-kind replacement of 6 of the 8 windows on the west, south, and east facades, utilizing new single hung impact products with matching divided light patterns. And aside from the gray glass, these window types and the proposed divided light patterns can be approved administratively. The applicant is proposing to change the design of the 2 front windows facing 7th Avenue North from paired single hung configurations to a single horizontal slider per opening. Staff was unable to administratively permit the change in design of the front 2 windows, as the proposed horizontal slider windows don't replicate a historic window type compatible with the Mission Revival architectural style as outlined in the design guidelines. Now, administratively, staff could approve an in-kind replacement for these openings with a pair of single hung windows per opening. And alternately, staff could approve a equal thirds horizontal roller in each opening, which proportionally could replicate the appearance of a triplet of 8-light wood casement windows, which per the design guidelines is a compatible replacement option when original features no longer remain for Mission Revival structures. And I'll show you what those options look like momentarily. Additionally, the window surrounds, sills, and mullions were removed at this property when the original windows were removed and substantial exterior alterations occurred. Staff is making the recommendation that a historically compatible window surround treatment be applied when the windows are replaced, but that is just a recommendation. For the doors, the applicant is requesting to replace the 3 existing doors on the structure. They're requesting an in-kind replacement of the front door, which features 4 raised panels and a horizontal window at the top and set with decorative glass. But the door's design does not resemble a compatible replacement option within the Mission Revival section of replacement doors within the design guidelines. And per our permitting records, the current front door was never permitted, so an in-kind replacement would not be granted administratively. But staff recommends utilizing an impact like a vertical plank door or something similar as illustrated in the design guidelines. Additionally, the applicant is requesting to replace the permitted full view French doors on the west facade of the property with new impact French doors. An in-kind replacement here can be permitted. Additionally, they could use decorative divided light patterns that were popular on Mission Revival structures, but that's not a requirement. The back door of the structure is currently a raised 6-panel door. The applicant is requesting to replace that door with a new impact raised 6-panel door. But raised panel doors are generally excluded as replacement options for structures within historic districts, as recessed panel doors are more appropriate. So these are some mock-ups that staff made, but to kind of illustrate what we're talking about. But the applicant is requesting to replace the existing front door, again, in kind with a similar replacement. So that wouldn't really change. The door features 4 raised panels and the horizontal light at the top. Additionally, this is where the applicant is requesting to change the existing pairs of single hung windows to 50-50 horizontal roller windows with 12 lights per sash. Now, horizontal roller windows are not a historic window type and are generally not recommended to replicate certain types of windows. But generally, they can be approved to replicate groups of historic casement windows if the proportions of the sashes replicate the proportions of historic wood casement windows, and if group casements are appropriate for the architectural style. As proposed, the sashes are too wide to successfully replicate the proportions of historic wood casements, and I'll show you what I mean by that in just a second. But staff has made 2 recommended options. For option A, staff is recommending that the applicant select a door that is that's designed as compatible with the replacement door options in the design guidelines. And staff recommends that a vertical plank door or something similar is utilized. For the windows in option A, staff is recommending that the applicant reinstall pairs of hung windows with a center mullion with clear glass and divided light patterns as outlined in the design guidelines. So that's kind of what that would look like. For option B, this is where the horizontal roller windows could be used, but in a different configuration. As you'll see in the snippet on the bottom right, groups of casement windows were common for Mission Revival buildings. And you can find examples of these groups in 2s, 3s, 4s, and kind of with or without transoms. But the divided light patterns in these windows were generally always square or vertically oriented rectangles, and wood casement leafs were very narrow and generally about 25 inches wide. Now, the front window openings are about 74 inches wide, which would put you at 3 leaves across an opening with 8 lights per leaf. And in this example, we're recommending a horizontal roller system to accomplish that in an equal thirds configuration. This would mean that the center leaf is fixed and the side leaves roll or slide behind the center fixed leaf. What the applicant is requesting is a 50-50 horizontal roller configuration where each leaf is approximately 37 inches wide, which kind of misses out on that appearance. We just never saw casement windows that were this large from this time period. Okay. So for our analysis, again, the proposed window and door replacement plan is not entirely compliant with current regulation. The proposed change in design of the front 2 windows could not be approved administratively, as the proposed configuration is atypical and does not replicate a historic window type found on Mission Revival buildings. Again, staff has recommended 2 alternate replacement options for these openings to bring the property further into compliance with the design guidelines. Additionally, the glass proposed for the windows is not compliant with current regulation regarding visual light transmittance. And the proposed front door and rear door designs are not compliant with the design guidelines section on compatible Mission Revival door types. And staff recommends that the applicant select alternate door designs for these openings, which resemble door options provided in the design guidelines. The current request, again, it's not compliant with our regulatory standards, and staff is recommending denial of the application as submitted as the applicant. And that the applicant submit a revised application with new window and door products that could be approved administratively. So that's all of staff's presentation. I believe that the applicants are here with us this evening. I'm sure they'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
All right, thank you very much. The applicant is here, and can the applicant identify him or herself?
I believe everyone's moved.
Hi there. My name is Jason Hutchins. I'm the hired contractor for this project.
All right, and the owner is also here?
I believe so, but they're muted.
Can the owner unmute? Well, regardless,
Yes, hi, this is Alicia Hine, and Frederick Lummis is also on the line tonight.
all right. Did you want to add anything to Mr. Hodges' presentation?
I would like Jason to comment on that if he could, please.
Are you there?
Jason?
Yes, we can hear you, Jason.
Okay, just based upon the I'm just gonna start with the glass color, the gray glass. It was just brought up and ordered because that's what was existing. We were unaware that this was in a historical society or historical zone. It was never brought to our attention. There is a high level of car traffic that the car lights are shown through the house at all times of the days and nights. That's why we propose to keep the gray glass in the front. It's a very high level of traffic coming up and down that at all times. But that's the only reason we wanted to go with the gray glass there. As far as these windows with the horizontal rollers, as you can see what's there right now, I don't know who did the work before, but the work was done very poorly and caused a lot of leaks around the windows. That's why we had to rip out the stuff in the front. It was leaking inside the home. So what's proposed is to redo all the openings at the same widths, not changing the opening sizes or elevation heights. But we're going to have to cut back the stucco and repair the damaged structure that's not up to today's basic in order to have these windows maintain their integrity and hurricane impact rating. As far as the horizontal rollers, I mean, I asked that we could put a mutton pattern on there. I believe on the architectural committees, the stuff that I wrote, read, they asked for a raised mutton pattern on these. They don't accept the flat, which, you know, I'm okay with that because the flat kind of looks like you got bars on the window. But the horizontal rollers, there's other buildings in that area. I'm not sure what the year is on the buildings that look kind of similar to this that do have horizontal rollers on them. But I think Mr. Hodges said that some of these buildings were not permitted when they installed them. So I was unaware of all that. The doors that we're proposing are we're just replacing the doors with the same style of door. But I mentioned to him, I mean, the doors are pretty easy. We can probably just find another door panel that we can put on that front door that might meet your standards, other than the one that we proposed with the skylight, the light above it. The horizontal rollers are actually a better window to me. There's less moving parts, less stuff that has the ability to break on you.
Do you have an issue with the 3-part roller windows that staff is suggesting?
Only that we would have to reorder windows.
Mm-hmm.
I just think they're just small.
It appears that your windows are, I can't speak for other members of the board, but I suspect that the gray glass is a non-starter. So new windows would probably be required, and the one version showing the 3-part rollers, I don't know how the board feels about it, but would you be?
I thought there was some concern about that for fire code.
Yeah, those when you open up those 3 rollers, that only opens up about the size of the one set of lights going vertical. So when you open those up, they hit each other in the middle.
What is the room to the left of the front entrance door?
It's a bedroom.
Could be an issue.
We just gotta
That
worry
was
about
part of
means
our
of
concern,
egress.
that it would be, fire code would be a problem.
We can double check with Peter, our building official, about that. But just as a reminder, contributing buildings in historic districts are exempt from meeting egress requirements. If the new products are not making egress worse, you do still have the option of the paired windows, the paired hung windows.
Does the, in the plan that shows where the window locations are, is that door in the back, does that go into the bedroom?
Yes.
Okay, so that takes care of egress for that. What's the, looking at this plan on the right side of door number 2, what is that space where the other big window is?
The right side of, I'm sorry, which one was that?
I'm
Door
just
number?
Looking at this elevation, what is that, the pair of windows on the right side of the door, what space is that?
That is the living room kitchen area.
Okay. So really, there are no egress problems with that bedroom.
Yeah, it has a door apparently.
That door is in a separate room.
What room is it in?
It's in the bedroom.
So there are 2 bedrooms on the end of the house?
My understanding, yes.
Maybe the owner can tell me, are there 2 bedrooms on the end of that, on the east end of the house?
I'm sorry, that front window is to the bedroom,
Right, but
left of the door.
that's correct. I understand that, but what I'm hearing 2 things. Is that 1 bedroom at the end of the house or 2 bedrooms? In other words, is there a second bedroom where the door is as opposed to where the windows are?
Is the door in the same bedroom where the window is?
Where the French doors are.
No, I don't care about the French doors.
Okay.
I'm talking about the east end of the house.
Oh, on the back side.
It says bedroom, right? It says there's a door on the south side of the house, and the window's on the north side of the house. Is that the same room? Is the door in the same room as the windows?
Jordan, maybe you can circle the door
At
that
the
he's
E
discussing,
location.
the rear door. The rear
So that
door,
would be what they're asking is window D in the same room as door number 3?
Yes.
Okay, so there's no egress problem there.
All right, well,
I had a question.
yes, question.
Jordan, did you say that the windows that are existing now were permitted at one point with the tinting that's on them now?
Yeah, I believe they were permitted in 2001.
And if I'm not mistaken, when it comes to VLT, and somebody has permitted something that does not necessarily comply, we are able to allow for a darker tint or for them to replace it with the same tint that was permitted originally.
So there's challenges to that. One is there aren't many occasions to bring a property further into compliance with current regulation, except for when they are doing full-scale replacement. So if we're trying to bring properties more into compliance, then this is the time to do it, when they're being replaced. The second challenge with, I guess you would call it grandfathering a tint, is that we're only now requiring VLT standards. So documentation in the city's property files regarding old window replacements would not have that information provided. And therefore, it's really impossible to say what the visual light transmittance was or currently is as compared to what they are requesting. So there's a lot of leeway there for windows to get darker than they were initially. There's just not really a way to substantiate an in-kind replacement when it comes to the VLT of the glass.
In an analogy that I'm familiar with, that somebody had a previous a roof that had previously been concrete flat tile. This is before historic went into place, and they had it replaced with permit with asphalt shingles, and they wanted to go back with something in between. They didn't want the inexpensive shingles, but they didn't want to go to the super expensive, and they suggested going with metal, which would have possibly been approved, but they said no, you can go back with shingles only because that is what was permitted. That's what they're now and permitted. So you can put that back, or you can go back with the concrete tile. And what the chair said at the beginning of this thing is that the tint on this is a non-starter, but if they're replacing the tint with permitted tinted windows, is that something that, I mean, it allows us to consider?
At a staff level, we've had several internal discussions about that. And, you know, in historic preservation or in zoning, when you're trying to bring properties further into compliance, you do that when they are doing new permitted work. And our glass standards right now are kind of a blanket condition. So we don't really have the authority to grandfather that. That relief, if they are requesting that, would be made by the Hrpb. You know, there are many ways that you all could look at this. If that is something that you are leaning towards, maybe you look more at the windows that are more readily apparent. You know, you have your discretion here, but this is also kind of staff looking for advice as to how to handle these, because right now our standards are just for, you know, they are for glass in general. And without being able to substantiate what the VLT is of the glass being removed, it's very difficult for us to say that something is an in-kind replacement when we don't have documentation showing what the existing glass is.
And then you made the comment very early on that the rest of the window replacements, the other 6, I guess, would be consistent with and would be allowable except for the tint. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So if the tint is not a, you know, and I'm sorry to say, you know, non-starter or whatever, if there's something that we can consider, now we're looking at the windows that are proposed that I guess they've already purchased and they have them in hand, or they've been ordered for the front 2 windows.
I'll have to defer to the applicant. I believe they already have them.
All the windows have been ordered and they're sitting in the warehouse.
Whose warehouse? The window company's warehouse or your warehouse?
No, the window companies.
A question, Mr. Hodges. I don't want to repeat what you've already said, but do we have record of what originally was there as far as window openings?
No, we don't. We've kind of dug through the property file. The only thing that we really have showing old window locations are these 2 photos, which these are not original windows to the building. So they've likely been, you know,
right.
It's impossible to say. We can make an educated guess, but it's difficult to say.
All right.
I might be able to shed a little light on that. The windows that are on that building, when they put these things in, they were not installed properly. And you can see that based upon the back side of that building. If you can go to that, Jordan, on the back side of the building.
Yeah.
That
way to get to the pictures on the back side.
Is this not the rear, the south?
Yeah, that's the rear. If you look at that dark area around these windows, they used a building product that was not susceptible to the elements. Those are 2x4s that they just put around there. All that stuff will have to be replaced and done properly with stucco returns on all these windows. But the window sizes will match the openings that are there.
It looks like you have a lot of repair work to do. So
Oh, there's a ton of rot, and it's got to be brought up to code.
yeah.
I met with the building official out there, and he agreed, and we agreed to bring everything up to the building codes around these window openings and door openings.
Can I get back to these two front windows that are really going to be prominent on the front of this building? The ones that you have already purchased, not only they're tinted, but they are double sliders with muntins, or are they clear at this time?
Mr. Guthrie, you can see kind of on the screen right now, the bottom snippet on the right is from the spec sheet. So it's a 50-50 horizontal slider. Currently, the mutton configuration is 12 lights per leaf, and it is the windows with the VT at 35%. The larger image is a hand drawing of what that would look like.
And we can't see what's to the right. It's our screen. It's kind of hiding some of that detail because it's showing the zoom.
It's got your picture.
Yeah, it's got.
Oh, I see.
We can't see that, but I mean that's. But I mean, I think that the illustration is probably sufficient for what it is that they've already purchased. What I was asking was the ones that they purchased. He had talked about not having flat muntins and having raised muntins. Are the windows, were the windows ordered with muntins, or are they clear glass or full view?
I believe these ones in the front, yeah, the ones in the front have a mutton pattern. And if they don't, we can apply the raised mutton pattern because that's all they do in the factory. It's all it is an applied piece. There are different designs. Like I spoke with Jordan, they do have like a more like a colonial design with the muttons with the raised, where the other ones are a flat, just applied piece of aluminum, and it looks pretty basic.
Okay, and you don't have any problem with the door replacements being to our guidelines, right? With the getting rid of the raised panels, the 6 raised panels, and that light on top. You're gonna put something similar to what's being shown now with the vertical planking.
I think what I would have to do is maybe pull some doors and maybe correspond with Jordan and let him know, see if they would approve. You know, with that flat panel. As far as the ones in the rear, that 6 panel that's in the rear of the building, we would probably just go with a basic smooth door. I mean, you don't even see any of this stuff because there's about an 8-foot high fence around this whole property. So you really don't see anything that's in the back or on the sides.
Jordan, what would be a successful replacement of that particular door, the 6 raised panels?
I would again kind of defer to the design guidelines section on Mission or Mediterranean doors. What we see most commonly and what seems to be most commonly available now in impact products, I know Plastpro, Masonite, a bunch of companies make a door that is similar to what is shown here. It's just a vertical plank door. They also make vertical plank doors that are, well, they're panel doors, but the vertical planks are recessed into the panels. You could also do a traditional 6-panel door with a recessed panel design. What's kind of on here now is a 6-panel door with a raised panel design, which is kind of discouraged all throughout the design guidelines. So we do try to steer clear of those. But there are, numerous door options available that could be permitted.
Mr. Chairman, would it be helpful if Jordan pulled up the conditions of approval?
There weren't any conditions.
I
agreed.
apologize, yeah.
There are no, if I understand correctly, staff recommendation is for denial and that the issues be worked out with staff. I do think that as part of the denial, if that's the way we're going, would be to direct staff to not permit any kind of shading on the windows. What's the word? Tint on the windows. And I would recommend that staff be directed to go in the direction of the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 rollers. How do board members feel about that?
Mr. Chairman, could I chime in for a second?
Yes.
Thank you. We have a historic district. There's big signs all over the neighborhood. Historic district did not just pop up yesterday. This is a prominent house that literally sits on the street. Personally, I like the double single hungs. That's just my opinion. That's what's in my Spanish house 2 blocks away. And I'm all for the tint. We were very animate about how we set up our rules, regulations, and clear is clear. We had how many meetings about it. So I'm just voicing my opinion on this really interesting piece of contributing architecture in our historic district. Just my opinion.
So, Mr. Dorinzo, your preference on the windows is what, paired 6/1s?
I like that. I have that in my house, and I just, that's just my opinion out there. I like the double set of 6/1s.
6/1 is, I'm sorry, 6/1. I will just say, they can technically come in if the application is denied, they can technically come in with anything that is compatible in the design guidelines with a appropriate pattern, and of which there are many.
You could do 3/1. Correct.
Correct.
I agree, Jordan.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, may I suggest in this matter, maybe a continuance with direction to the applicant that if they can't work out this administratively to reduce the inconsistency with the guidelines, because it seems like part of why staff recommend denial is that we have inconsistency with pattern, inconsistency with color, inconsistency with doors. So we have a lot of inconsistency in the ask. Maybe the direction could be to continue to work to reduce the consistency issues with the design guidelines, and maybe bring that back if there's still something we can't compromise, or to have this go and have the applicant fully comply with the design guidelines, and then go through the administrative approval process. Because I think that's I think they needed to hear that you were not going to be supportive of all of what was previously ordered. And that's what they're here. They want to install what they ordered. If that's not okay, then I think we need the direction to go back and work with them to reduce their inconsistencies. And if there's still stuff they want to bring back to you the following month, we can do that. I don't think we're going to fix it tonight.
I would certainly be happy with a continuance.
Can I?
Straw poll, do other members feel that way? Ms. Fox, Mr. Dorinzo?
I would say you, because we've spent so much time on this tinting that I'm not willing to give it up right now.
Okay.
Yeah, but you guys don't live on that street where the cars go up and down there, and it's blinding in that house. I mean, you gotta take into account for the homeowner as well.
This is an historic district.
The tinting's just to keep the.
And there are many houses in the area that have tinting. So when was that changed, please?
When the historic district started, and I'm not going to say anymore. I'll be rude.
The
Yeah.
No need to be rude,
the
it's just-
clear glass standard was instituted with the introduction of the design guidelines and was further clarified with a VLT standard late last year.
Can I hear a motion of some sort, please?
I move to continue this project to the next meeting.
We have a motion to continue the project to the next meeting. A second?
Second.
Seconded. Any additional discussion before we vote?
I would like to say, I support Bob's opinion on this. To me, this is a very interesting old building, and I hate to see it get, it's just kind of getting tossed basically to the curb. I mean, there was so much interesting detail on this, the buttress on the left side of this thing. It's
Yeah, it's
fantastic.
cute. Yeah, very nice.
You know, so I mean, it deserves a better approach than what it's getting.
Correct.
All right, I think staff has direction. We have a motion and a second to continue it. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Okay.
Thank you,
we-
Mr. Chairman. Staff will work with the applicant to reduce the inconsistencies with the design guidelines insofar as feasible. And if we can get it done administratively, we'll do that.
Thank you very much. Next project. Item D. I suspect that is Aaron.
That is me, Mr. Chairman. Just give me
Go for
one
it.
second. Good evening. For the record, Aaron Sita, Assistant Director with the Department of Community Sustainability. The item I'm presenting to you this evening is a new LDR ordinance. This ordinance basically addresses changing market conditions related to the COVID-19 emergency, some minor housekeeping modifications, and it also clarifies that the intent of the recently adopted affected party provisions, continuance provisions, were intended to allow for only one continuance for all affected parties, regardless of the limitations. And this is as consistent with the time limitations for review that local governments have as set forth in the Florida statute. We are amending 4 articles in our LDRs. Walking you through those quickly, we are amending the definition section. The proposed amendments will add and modify definitions. This will clarify several existing uses and will define our new use, which is in this ordinance, which is our takeout establishment use. This use was created again in response to the COVID-19 emergency, which we're anticipating a future market shift towards more takeout, online ordering and takeout uses. So we wanted to establish a new use definition where that use can be permitted by zoning district, and also to have supplementary review standards to make sure that these new types of uses are not impactful to adjacent commercial businesses and residential properties. Moving on to Exhibit B of the ordinance, this amends our quasi-judicial procedures, clarifying that only one continuance is permitted for all affected parties. When this ordinance was originally crafted in the fall, the 1-month continuance was to allow for registered affected parties to have an additional month to hire an attorney or to hire professional consultants. What we had gotten pushback from was affected parties was essentially an intent to delay to stop projects, which is not permitted under statute. We just wanted to clarify that the intent was to allow for effective participation from our residents and from our adjacent property owners for any future developments that are in process. So we want to make sure that they all have enough time to prepare and come adequately to the meeting to bring their issues, but it's not, the intent was not to continuously delay projects, which obviously our hands are tied as well because of our time limitations in Florida law. Exhibit C, this is the use table. This establishes review processes by zoning district for takeout establishment uses. We also are modifying the review process for trunk truck and van rentals, museums, schools of arts, arts and photography galleries. Most of these we didn't really have an approval process for those uses greater than 7,500 square feet. So on Dixie Highway. So if we wanted let's say a large art and photography gallery to come in over 7,500 square feet, we really had no clear identified review process. So those processes that we've added are all conditional uses, which would come to you for those types of uses where they're permitted in the district and where they're in historic districts. If they are in outside of historic districts, those uses would require approval by the Planning and Zoning Board. And finally, we're amending Article 4, which is our development review standards. And you can see that in Exhibit Z, no, not Z, D, D as in dog. And this established our supplementary development standards related to our proposed new use type, which is our takeout establishments. And basically, sometimes takeout establishments may have outdoor waiting areas, or they may have other things like that. And it's to clarify the limitations on those, clarify the limitations on when takeout windows are permitted. It requires garbage and refuse management if any part of the use is exterior to the structure. So all those new development standards are in the code to make it clear that when they are allowed, they are subject to additional review. So that concludes my presentation. Unless you all have any questions for me, and I believe we have Abe, if you could move the rest of the attendees over who remain. I believe there's several who want to speak on this particular use.
Are we opening public comment then?
I would just say, let's just start moving them over and then let the board decide when public comment is.
There's one public comment, and if Sherry can keep track of the time as well with the public comment.
I'm not sure if all these people are here to speak on this one.
No, it's just one person.
Yeah. Okay.
Unpromoted. I'm asking to unmute, and you can turn on your
Well,
video.
let's just wait until the board directs us to have public comment. So, Mr. Chairman, did you all have any questions for me?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Did any of this pertain to the sandwich shop we've all been waiting for to open on J Street? Is it delaying anything? I want that sandwich.
So the sandwich shop, so the folks who are opening in the sandwich shop, they were taking it, they were taking advantage of a new provision under the Florida Building Code that they could represent themselves and not hire a design professional. And so they kind of came in sideways through our normal processes where we would have flagged them much earlier. Now, we had been talking about this takeout establishment kind of idea internally for a while. So once we realized they were in our process, what we did is we expedited this piece because we were already going to move forward to address the affected party continuance. To be business friendly, we were going to do it anyway, and we were like, well, let's just go ahead and do it. So because they didn't come in the normal way and they didn't get a zoning confirmation letter, this is their only way that they can exist. And so
they're very nice people. They're doing a great job over there.
So Aaron, this is helpful to that sandwich shop, not harmful. Is that correct?
Correct. So this sandwich shop is not permitted in our downtown area without this amendment. So restaurants, currently our only use is restaurant takeout. We don't have a smaller takeout establishment type use, and that use is prohibited in the downtown. As you can imagine, larger takeout restaurants can be quite impactful, and that was thought, well, maybe this is not, like in 2013, maybe this is not the best use. So looking at it with fresh eyes from, again, going through COVID, how can we allow this type of use, but manage its impacts and really have clear development review standards for this type of use? Yeah. So we've been processing an administrative use permit for concurrently for the sub shop. So when this is approved, the AUP will be issued.
On your Exhibit D, Aaron, item B, the takeout establishments shall not be movable. Now, Matthews Brewing has a mobile truck that comes in there. Is this going to affect that?
So Matthews Brewing is not a takeout establishment. So its predominant business is for consumption, and it's a brewery. It's a microbrewery, so it's a different use. So that would have its own development review standards.
Okay. So how do we address the food truck situations? that's such a common thing in our country right now.
I am not going to talk to you about that tonight.
Okay, because that's a whole nother animal, right?
That's a whole other animal.
All right, never mind. Carry on.
Okay. I have a question of what sorts of comments did the P&Z board have?
They had none. They just approved it. They asked a couple questions and they approved it. They felt very comfortable with the requirements. And because they were experienced with the request for continuances, they understood why that one was in there, and they were appreciative of it being clarified.
Any other questions from board members? Hearing none, let's go to public comment. I understand we have public comment.
Yes.
Yeah, you can unmute.
Mrs. Clanton, can you unmute? Go ahead and speak. You can speak for 3 minutes.
Hi, this is Michaela and Danny Clanton, and we are the owners of Ldr Subs. So as newer residents of Lake Worth Beach, we've tried very hard to support local businesses since we moved here. When the world shut down, we tried to order out from local establishments as much as possible. And there came a point where we just wanted a good sandwich, and we realized there really wasn't very many choices in the downtown corridor to support a local business. And that's when we decided to open Ldr Subs. We've designed our little sandwich shop to reflect the character of Lake Worth Beach with color and some whimsy. We are in our sub shop right now. It's kind of hard with the lighting, but we have some fun pictures and hand painted tiles on the walls and lots of bright colors. So we think that most of our business will come during the week. The lunchtime crowd will be local businesses, and 90% of that business is going to be takeout. We don't have a takeout window at our sub shop, and thanks to technology, we're expecting most of those local business orders to be placed online. So they'll be placed online, and then someone will pop in and pick up their sandwich and take it back to their office or wherever they're having their sandwich. The weekends, we expected to get a lot of business from our local residents and from some tourists. And while most of that type of ordering will be done in person, and we do plan to have a couple of small tables out front for people that wish to dine out front, most of that business will also be takeout. But again, there is no takeout window, and there is enough room for people to come inside and order their sandwich. So there won't be a line standing out in front of the sidewalk. Although if that ever happened, that would be just amazing that we would have that much business.
Yeah, and Mrs. Clinton, you know, the development regulations are not for your business. These are for
Right.
all potential new businesses that could come in, and there may be one that would select to have a takeout window. So your
Absolutely.
business is going to be administratively reviewed through our AUP process. So really, just if you want to speak in support of the LDR change, because that would be really the scope of what the board is here tonight. So
Okay. So we just obviously feel that as the world is changing and the way people are changing, the way they're thinking about eating and ordering food, just updating the code and what's allowed in the downtown corridor is just something that should definitely be considered and available for other small restaurants or places like us that are opening up.
Thank you very much, and best of luck to you in your endeavor.
Thank you.
Okay, that's
All the best.
Yeah, any additional public comments? Then we go into executive session. Any questions or thoughts from board members? And if not, we have a potential motion here.
We may have to change the approvals of this particular ordinance.
I could do it. I move to recommend to the city commission to adopt the proposed LDR text amendments included in PZB Hrpb 2103100001 ordinance 2021-01.
I second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any additional comment? Hearing none. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Aaron.
Hey, Aaron, does this mean that they have the go ahead now? Can we get a sandwich?
we have a little bit more work to do. They had to do a change of use and occupancy. So they have some more, they have to get their final inspections. This is a building code inspection. It's not to do with zoning. So when you change a use, you have to change a lot of things over for it to meet building code. So they're going through that process. We're going to give them a conditional AUP you know, so that they can get moving prior to the second reading of the ordinance. So
Thank you.
Thank you. Now moving on to planning issues. I don't know how to do this, but we have an election tonight. Is that something that Ms. Cole will be in charge of?
We do have election. We have missed it by about 2 months. It's technically originally scheduled for the January meeting of every year. So at this time, if you would like to nominate your chairman for the upcoming year, as well as any vice chair, make any changes, nominations, open the floor to those nominations, now would be the time to do that. And I'll turn it over to the rest of you to make that decision or just have that discussion.
I have a suggestion. I move to nominate Mr. Feldkamp to stay as our chairman of the board. I think he's doing a great job. And I'd like to nominate Mr. Guthrie as vice chair.
A second.
Oh, okay. Are there other nominations? Hearing none, I guess that was a motion. Is that correct? Was that a motion and a second, or?
I can second that motion.
I think it was seconded by Ms. Fox.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that would be.
That was a motion. Okay. Any additional discussion? If not, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. And
I have a title. Congratulations, Chair.
congratulations, Mr. Chair and Mr. Vice Chair.
wonderful. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, we have some conceptual plan reviews coming up.
Correct, Mr. Vice Chair. I know we're going to try to get through these quickly, and we're going to try to keep our presentation and discussion, if possible, to about 20 minutes for these items.
All right.
So Jordan and I, essentially, we're just going to give a brief introduction and hand it over to applicants. So the first one is a conceptual plan review for 224 North L Street. If you recall, you did see this property last year. At the time, it was for window replacement. The item was continued because there was some fire separation issues as the existing structure is constructed very close to one of the property lines. Kind of within that time span, I did go on property with Mr. Ringel. We did see there was a lot of damage. And as that time frame transpired, the property owner did indicate he's going to request that Mr. Ringel go down to go back to the property to assess if there are unsafe conditions that would lead to a condemnation. So that's kind of the direction this is going. And Mr. Garrett, he wanted to show you guys his idea for new construction on the lot if things go in that direction of it being condemned. So I will share his presentation and turn it over to him. Actually, let me bring him over first. And let me share.
Okay, thanks, Abraham. Like you said, my name is Garrett Scheffler. Good evening, everybody. It's nice to speak with you again. So as you mentioned, Peter Ringel is, as briefly looking at the site, thinking that it's in condemnable kind of condition. And so with that feedback from him, I started exploring some different, new new concept, which I'm looking to get your feedback on tonight. Very open to whatever your thoughts are, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's a design that I'm really excited about, and I'm excited to move there when it's complete. Me and my girlfriend and our dog. So you can go to the next slide. So this was this house down or on the left side of the slide is kind of the inspiration for the design. It's a site that was built in, I think, in the Seattle area by an architect named Mark Stewart. And so I used this as a basis, but didn't keep the garage in the front of the house. I moved the garage to the back. So when we get into the actual design of the house, you'll be able to see how that played out. And I just have really enjoyed this style of house. I think it's kind of contemporary / mid-century modern home with some different colors and the open style windows. Can you go to the next slide? I just wanted to show a couple of other pictures of the street just to give everybody a quick reference. This is the there's a row of condominiums across the street, directly across the street from the house. North L Street, as you guys most likely know, runs in the south direction. This is looking north. There's kind of an older home right there on the corner of North L and 3rd. And then this is something that I've seen in the minutes from previous meetings. I think it was maybe around January last year, where this site was approved for the southeast corner of North L and 3rd. So my property is directly to the right of this, going down L Street. So here I just pulled this street elevation from that set of drawings for 230 North L Street. That structure right there to the right of it is exactly where 224 is. Right now it's a single story residence. The last time I presented to the board, I presented it's a orange house with kind of the triangular window concept.
Sorry, I'm just pulling up your concept. You know if I have the right one.
Yep, this is it. Okay, so so I started doing this this design. I drew all this on my own. I downloaded Revit CAD software and started learning that with the help of an architecture colleague of mine from college. So the lot is 25 by 135 feet, and the new house proposed will be a 2-story house, which runs about 75 feet by 15 feet. And so that kind of keeps the 5-foot setback for a 2-story home on either side. So it's a very skinny house. In order to make it more spacious, it got quite long, but it does still fit all of the zoning, the LDR requirements for size of footprint of the house and for lot coverage. So this is kind of a 3D view from looking at it from the northwest. So this is kind of the view you would see as you're driving down L Street with the house on the left side. Some of the details, most of the windows are fixed light windows. They'll be aluminum style. The manufacturer is still to be determined. The egress windows or any of the windows that open will be a tilt turn style. So they will actually tilt or turn inwards. It's a kind of a European style window with some suppliers in the US. They're not extremely widely used, but they are available. But I have to determine the correct manufacturer. Most of them are vertically oriented, but there is one horizontally oriented window where that would be above the kitchen cabinets there. It would be kind of like a backsplash window. This is the basic floor plan for the first floor. Now you can see the location of the garage in the back of the house. There will be a 6-foot overhang there on the back of the house to just provide some rain coverage coming in and out of the garage. And then the front of the house will have a front wraparound porch with the entry on the side. Go to the next slide. This is the second floor. You can kind of see it has a square winder staircase. And then there are appropriately sized egress windows in both the front and back bedrooms. And then in the loft, that would be a tilt turn egress window as well, which would leave this the option to become a 3-bedroom house in the future. These are the front and rear elevations. So the doors I haven't really decided on yet. And the garage door I put in as a glass garage door, but I'm not necessarily married to that. And the horizontal lines on the front west elevation, those are that would have like a ribbed stucco effect. That's a very clean ribbed stucco effect. So it wouldn't be necessarily looking like raked or anything like that. It'd be very kind of like a tight, maybe 2-inch ribbing. That's maybe a half-inch deep or so. This is just kind of more direct view. Front door will probably have a more modern style front door with some lights in it and it also has I think it's an 18-inch wide side panel on the side, full light. And this is the south elevation. So this is the side of the property that has another 1-story house on the other side of it. You would see this, I guess, if you were walking north on North L Street. And I just put this together. I've just been playing with colors on the house and seeing what it looks like in different shades and colors. So want to do something vibrant and interesting and unique. And that's pretty much all I have to present. I didn't mention, but it did show that I do want to do a black metal roof. The hatching on this is not correct, though. It would be parallel to the street or perpendicular to the gable.
Just out of curiosity, why would you make it black?
Yeah. I guess it could be like a galvanized or something. I wanted to keep it a color that would be universal for any other color palettes that either myself or future owner would want to paint the house. I don't want to do like red or blue, something that restricts the color palette too much. Right. But I'm open to ideas on that.
The only reason I'm asking, I would think it would act like a gigantic solar collector and make everything super hot inside.
Yeah, maybe it would. No, I did plan on the ceilings will be vaulted on the second floor, so there'll only be like select attic space above bathrooms and closets and such. So I was planning on doing the spray foam insulation on the inside ceiling, so that hopefully would help negate some of those negative effects.
I have to say, you did a better presentation than a few architects that have been in front of us. Well, thank you for that.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Well, I have some thoughts. I applaud your use of color. I don't think we have enough color in the city. The plan very much reminds me of a project in the South End by my predecessor. It was done very much in the vernacular local style, but perhaps Jordan can pull that out for you. Jordan, I don't know if you remember Daryl. Darren did a house with virtually the same plan, but of course the architecture was different.
I believe we did share that with Garrett because, a lot of times with these lots, we do see people propose 1-story. So Darren's project was, I think, I don't know any new construction before that they had taken on the challenge of doing 2 stories. And again, it's an added challenge because once you go 2 stories, your side setback increases to 5. So that makes
Right.
the home very narrow.
Yeah. But at the porch is allowed to go back to the 3-foot side yard.
That is correct.
Yeah, so you gain a little bit there.
Yeah.
I am not terribly concerned about it being 2-story because of the 6-unit building that's proposed for next door. So I don't disagree with the 2-storyness of it. You do have some additional things to worry about because, as you noted, walking northward on Lakeside, you would see that entire 2nd floor above the 1-story house to the south of you.
Yes.
So that wall would become important. Another thing that comes to mind is the city of Seaside, or the town of Seaside in the Panhandle, was built using an interesting set of code requirements. When Seaside was first planned, they wanted to be sure to not make it a requirement that it be a vernacular architecture, and that modern architecture was very much permitted and endorsed. However, there were certain requirements that the window openings all be vertically oriented or square, not horizontally oriented, and that they have roughly proportions that would be consistent with the neighborhood.
Mhm.
And roofs could be, and of course here in Lake Worth, we have a lot of flat roof buildings, and we have a lot of 3 and 12 pitched roofs. I would have a hard time. I don't think we have any shed roofs to any great extent. So I would like to see the roof over that front porch become flat. I would like to, I have a problem with the shed roof in the front. And I would like to see, certainly on the front facade, I'd like to see more verticality to the windows. Those are my thoughts. Other people?
And I'll kind of interject here to kind of piggyback off what Mr. Feldkamp was saying, is that talking about Seaside's regulations, our visual compatibility criteria for new construction and additions mirror a lot of that language, talking about window openings should be similar to the size and proportion of neighboring structures. It talks about roof lines, massings, common exterior materials, to where it doesn't limit you to an architectural style, but it does encourage you to increase compatibility with neighboring structures in terms of opening sizes, height, massing, scale, things like that. So kind of keep those in mind. Speaking to the HRPB, keep those criteria that are typically in the staff reports in mind when you're doing conceptual reviews, because if one of these projects comes in, those are what you're going to end up reviewing them against.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
Can I say one thing about your south side? When you're walking up north on L and you had the 1-story house and then you had the 2nd story of yours, it's kind of blank. Any more windows you can put in there? I love what you've done with a 25-foot lot. That's amazing.
Thank you.
But that just going up there when all
you don't want
see is the 2nd story.
Yeah.
It's kind of.
I understand what you're saying.
I mean, that's just my thought.
Yeah, I did consider it. I guess one of the reasons is for privacy, or if since there is a 1-story building next to it, the bedroom is in the front there, so you kind of do want to have a little bit of privacy from people walking down the street. I guess the front facing window, you'd have to kind of more look directly at the property. And because there's a fair amount of tree coverage in the front kind of front south corner of the property. That was also the reasoning for the more horizontal shaped window in the upstairs. I think, Mr. Feldkamp, I think you're thinking kind of what your comments towards the horizontal window in the front is kind of more geared towards the second floor. If you could, Abe, if you can go up one slide, I think we could see the front elevation, or the other direction, sorry. Go look directly at the front.
Oh, you just want the front facade?
Yeah, here you go. So you wanted to see, I guess this is kind of the thinking too. Yeah, so like this second story window assembly would provide a little bit more privacy to like, you know, if you were laying in bed in this room. And then I tried to solve some of the, you know, create additional vertical features by adding these stucco details in yellow. The shed roof is kind of it's a mid-century modern style. And it definitely is mixed with a little bit of a contemporary feel. But you know, actually originally I drew this house as a you know, in this long straight shape with a flat roof, and it really starts to look a lot like a very large shipping container or shoebox, and that with that being next door, and the eclectic feel that we're, you know, seems like we're going for in Lake Worth, it didn't seem right. But
You are aware that the 6-unit next door is basically shipping containers. It's
yeah. I imagine, I didn't know that they were actual shipping containers, but
well, they are not, but they are modulars.
yeah.
I was interested to hear your take on this being a transition from the shipping container project down to what would be on the right side is the Mediterranean.
Yeah, it's a Mediterranean or medieval style.
You know, in other words, this almost kind of mimics the modular project that's going to be right next door to them, and then gives a nod to some of the flat roofs like we just reviewed, and granted the extension on their carport. That kind of has that little bit of an appeal there, but only on a 2-story level. I just wanted to know what you thought about that.
Yeah.
Transition wise.
Well, you know, this is a 2-story, but as I remember, the modular 6 units has a flat roof, so this may in fact be higher than the modulars, which would be another reason to not do the shed section, but do the entire roof as a pitched gable. And I really have, this is just a personal opinion, I have a hard time with the shed roof on the entrance porch. Like to see that flat. And if that's flat, I suppose you might even be able to put a deck up there. I don't know if that is legal or not. Put a little balcony out there.
Yeah.
So the neighboring property, it's not in all of it 2 stories, but a portion of it is 2 stories. Because we're going to be working with Garrett more, what we've heard so far from the board is, you know, trying to maintain more of those vertical proportions for the windows. The chairman did recommend that shed roof in the front be flat, which is more consistent with, you know, contemporary style. And what I would maybe add to where you're wanting more privacy, kind of a middle ground approach that you can have is you can have windows high up. Maybe you can break them up into separate windows. Maybe they're more square in proportion. And so they're still, you know, in line with something vertical, and you're still, you know, achieving some privacy if you need it in that location.
Mm-hmm.
I could see a grouping of 3 or 4 square windows on that last slide that you showed on the second floor, rather than one long horizontal.
Right where the hand is?
Yeah.
Or directly under
that window might be replaced with a 3 or 4 or some number of square windows. again, getting back to the seaside and the staff's recommendation that we look for compatibility with other buildings around. And this is a tough one because you are across the street from a bunch of Mediterranean townhouses and you are next to some shipping containers. And I know I'm going to regret saying that. And then you are next to, I guess to your south is what, another single-story vernacular, is that correct?
Yeah, it's like kind of a Spanish style.
Hmm.
Single story.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, and then further down the street, you know, you once you get to the next corner, you start to see two-story houses again.
Yeah.
And then across the street, just south of the Mediterranean style condos is another kind of contemporary style green home, which I don't believe has a flat roof. You know, I think that there is an argument to be made that this does not necessarily need to be a flat roof building, and that this adds more character to the neighborhood. But I certainly, you know, everybody's entitled to their opinions.
I hope I was not misquoted. I have no problem with the pitched gable roof as you have. It's where it becomes a shed roof at the front. It seems to have no particular reason.
Yeah, he's talking about the cover of the door on it, the door roof.
Oh, the door. Oh, okay, not the main roof. Yeah,
not the main roof. That's what the Mr. Chairman was. And it's interesting, Bill, because Abe and Jordan had that same thought as well. So to make the lower roof a flat roof. So
I agree with that. I don't necessarily dislike the shed roof, but I think there's too much of the angular going on as far as the roof lines go. So if you just picked one as maybe like an accent, like you did the shed roof and everything else was flat or something, I think that it would look a little cleaner, because everything is very geometric on this anyway, and there's too many roof lines going on, and I definitely agree that the porch should be a flat roof.
So, Mr. Chairman, we're about that 20-minute mark. If you have any other comments, I think we've given Garrett a good some good feedback, and staff will continue to work with him to implement some of that feedback we've received today.
excellent. If there are no other comments, let's move on to conceptual plan review C, 122 South K.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a great night.
Okay.
Thank you, Garrett.
So our next one is going to be for 122 South K Street. This one's a little bit different. It's going to be an addition to a contributing resource. 1 second. Okay. Am I on the right screen, Abe?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So like I said, this is going to be an addition and then a detached accessory structure for a contributing resource in the Southeast Lucerne District. The architect is Juan Cotton's office. I believe it's a new couple who've recently purchased the property, but I'll kind of let him take it from there.
Okay. Thank you very much, Board, for letting us present 122 South K Street. Our client is a very well-known sculptor. They fell in love with Lake Worth over a lot of the things that Lake Worth is all about, the arts, downtown, the beach, and they fell in love with the project. The issue was it was a very small house, and they wanted to expand on it. So we came up with something that we thought would fit and also worked a bit with the volume of the things. There's Fatin from our office who worked very heavily on this project, and she would like to present the workings of it, and we'll both answer your questions as you need them.
Okay, Fatin or Juan, just tell me when to change the slide and I'll move it along.
Okay, I'll let you know. Hello, I'm Fatin. I'm the design coordinator at Content Architecture. So I worked with this project like Juan mentioned. So originally when the client came to us, she was looking to do a cabin, like a cabana in the back, like basically an accessory structure. So when I looked at how much square footage they had in their primary building, since the code allows for 40% of the primary building to be an accessory structure, their primary building was very small, so it didn't allow them to have enough space for a cabana. So what we proposed to them was to add to their primary structure to be able to build more in the back. And they have a very wide lot, 135 feet by 25 feet. So they have a lot of space to work with in the back. It's just that that primary structure was small in the first place. You can go to the next slide. So you can see now in the site, there's a new extension that would be attached to the existing structure and then accessory structure in the back. Next slide. These are the existing images. So toward the front, you have the traditional or the typical lake horse characteristics. And then in the back, we noticed that basically from what Jordan and Abraham told us is that there was, it was enclosed at some point, and it was probably a porch area that was later enclosed and made into a laundry room and a bathroom. And it creates a very awkward space for, if you can see in the bottom images, that there's a window that leads to the laundry room that was supposed to lead outside, but now it's like an awkward space for that bedroom that's there. And also the bathroom is pretty tight, and they've had plumbing issues before. I'm pretty sure the bathroom is not up to code. It's very, very small. And it's located within this porch area. That existing house itself does not have a bathroom. It just has 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, and a living room area. You can go to the next slide. These are some images of what's around the area. We were just observing just to, but because for them to build the cabin in the back, they really needed to increase the square footage of their primary structure, which led us to a 2-story structure. So we wanted to look around to see what other buildings are there. And there is, on south of K Street, there is a 2-story structure that's existing. And that's just a general idea of what's around in the area. The next slide. Like I said, these are the existing images and what we're proposing to demolish. And this, because for us to add to the building and have a 2-story in the back, we couldn't keep the enclosed porch area without it looking very odd in terms of the profile of the building, with the primary and the shed and then another building next to it that's attached. And then also the cabin in the back created a very complicated situation. So what we were proposing was to demolish the enclosed laundry room, bathroom, and then propose something else, which is the next slide. So we would keep the existing building, so the street frontage would not change. It would just be the back that they extend. They have a double, a 2-story space. They could have more living area, and they wanted a guest bathroom and a desk area that looks out to the garden. And then their cabana has a little guest bedroom that they can have guests at. And then the second floor has another bedroom they added since for extra space, and then a gym / or it could be their own office or and a bathroom upstairs. And then next. So the client really wanted something modern. So this is what we actually talked to Abraham and Jordan about all the features that they recommended based on the existing house, and we gave some input to the client and told them this is what they're recommending. But then when we showed them what it could look like, they kind of were apprehensive about it. And so they really wanted something modern with their background from an artistic background, and they had a vision in mind. So we kind of just wanted to give them what they wanted and propose this to you. We also, so this would be the right is the back facade of the primary structure. And then the left barn photo is the cabana in the back that would be facing it. And then there would be a little garden in between. Next. This would be the view from the street view when you would see what you would see from the street, basically. Next. Some elevations of same, it's reiterating. Next. And this is the side profile. We tried to keep the sizes of the windows to match the existing sizes other than the cabana, which has like larger windows. But from the primary structure, we tried to keep them the same size as, like, if you can see on the south elevation, those windows, yeah. And we also tried to keep the window that you saw in the laundry room. We had a little entrance, if you see that door. We kind of notched out a little entrance there so we can keep the existing window without removing it from the primary structure that was there. We're just proposing to remove the enclosed porch, basically. We also, if you go next. We also wanted to propose other options just in case you had an issue with how it would look like from the street and how it would look like to in terms of like the street, how it looks with all the other buildings. So this would be another option where we would keep the back the same way in a sense. It's kind of like an illusion because you can't see the wall in the back, but and it's actually like a gable roof towards the front. And then you would see next. This is how it would look like in elevation. And the next. And this also, we added more the awning windows, sharing similar to what the primary building was in this situation. And then next. This is another option where we kind of, you can see this one better and if you go to the elevations, the next elevation, where it's basically, yeah, it's a drop down where the back is kind of dropped down and you can only see the gable roof in the front. You don't see a wall that's extended in the first option. And then next. This is the third option, which is basically a slanted roof that maybe would also appeal to one of you. And then next, that's how it would look like in elevation. And that next. So these are some precedents. Since Abraham and Jordan, we were talking about how modern and historic and how you could try to differentiate the two. And there's approaches, which is, right, there's one that's to blend them and make sure that it's all continuous, and the other is to make it predominant, like it's very clear that that's the modern part and that was added. And what Abraham pointed out was that it's really seen in larger scale, like Louvre or something like that, you know. But in this case, we were trying to show that there are smaller scale examples once we started researching to see other existing historic homes that had additions that were that had the same idea of like a juxtaposition, basically. You go next. This one was one that we felt was very similar to us in the sense of just in terms of the palette, but also it won an award for Conservancy Preservation Award in Santa Monica, which is what we wanted to show. And then next. And these are just more examples of similar ideas. And that's all.
All right. Comments from board members?
Well, it's pretty adventurous. Let's start with that. I would like to look at these precedents a little bit. I admire you for doing a little bit of research and looking at it, what other people have done. One thing I'd like to point out, two of these projects in particular, I'm not sure the one on the bottom, if that one's not the same. That's not in Belgium. That's somewhere else. That's in, I don't know where. But anyhow, the one on the top with the green box. The interesting thing about this project, I think, is that the house that it's attached to is very ornate. And there's a ton of detail on it. And so obviously the architect played off the fact that his box is very stripped down and minimal. And you're approaching this from sort of the other direction, which I don't believe is as successful as this, because it overwhelms the existing house. I'm not sure that it needs to be quite as ornate or quite as dramatically different the way you've designed the screen walls. I certainly have no problem with that being a modern house. But what I'm trying to say is I think that you need something that's very strong to foil that, to be a juxtaposition to that. The other one that's fantastic is this one in California. And this one, you can see, has a ton of detail, just like the previous project that we were talking about. The old house has a ton of detail in this elevation that I believe is facing the street. And then the architect has made a small connector piece to the new bar that's the addition. And the bar is just basically, it's almost like a mausoleum when you look at it from the front. But it's very cool in that as it moves to the back where it's not really dealing with the streetscape, it's completely different, very open. Really, this is a beautiful project. I'd love to see this in person. The other two they're obviously, again, the juxtapositions are really nice, but these aren't, at least the left one is not in any kind of an urban context. And the right one doesn't look like that's in a particularly urban context either. They're both nice, and especially the one on the left is sort of has some interesting ideas going on. But the ones that I think are important in with your project are this first one with the green upper level box, and then the second one, just because of the way that the architect chose to address the elements that you can really see the most when you see the other house.
Now, I'd point out that these examples all are a bit, with the exception of the very last one, which we didn't talk about, are all a bit lower than the original structure.
Right.
They're not pop-ups. They're not, in Palm Beach, there were a lot of issues like this, people wanting to put a second story on a house, and how do you do it? And you can either integrate it, as is the Palm Beach way, or do, as you're suggesting, do something that's completely different. And I have no problem with that. Getting back to your project, I think that the height of it needs to be as minimal as possible. In other words, no parapet around the second floor, certainly not the second floor version with the shed roof. In my mind, not either the version with the gable roof, but just a flat roof. I would, from an architectural point of view, I would really like to have some kind of a spacer between the original house and the new one.
Absolutely.
You know, whether it's a 1 foot glass slot or something.
Some sort of a joint between the two.
A joint, thank you.
As I was going through the renderings, that if you hold right there, the one with the gable, because in a way you're trying to mimic not only the structure that it's attached to, but the homes on either side are gabled as well. And the only thing I thought is that everything has an overhang there. So would you want to differentiate it and make sure that there was no overhang on the back? So you're saying that you do not approve of the gable?
I don't. Can you get back to the flat roof version, first one, the rendering? There, whoop, there you had it. I mean, that is the most similar to the examples that you gave.
And you would like to see that much of a difference in the roof styles?
Well, from the historic guidelines say that the addition should be differentiated from the original.
Mr. Chairman, how would you separate those two? I know you were talking in architect lingo. What were you meaning by a wall or whatever between the two structures?
Well, rather than have the pitched roof of the original house overlap that new section.
Right.
Want to do a glass, what was the word?
Well,
you
they
used?
used a joint, but we illustrated in this Santa Monica project. That's exactly what this person did.
Yeah.
There's a very minimal joint between the two buildings. And it looks like it's glazed, some kind of glazed connector. When you look at the 3 photographs of that thing.
Yeah,
That's a nice.
if you want to go back to the California house example before that, there.
Yeah,
So there is
between-
some kind of a joint between them. I can't see exactly.
I'm pretty sure it's just glass. It looks like it.
Chairman, I noticed that in addition between these examples, there's a difference as well. And not only in the architectural style, but the finish. And it appears in just to add to the conversation, maybe you can provide some direction of whether the finish should match or should be different in some way and maybe have a textural interest of its own.
Absolutely. I think the finish should be as different as possible from the original.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I think it needs a lot more contrast. If you're going to have a differentiation between the two styles, then I think there needs to be a lot more contrast between the two.
Okay.
Comments from Ms. Fox or Mr.
Yeah, my
Dorenzo?
question is, what's the zoning here?
That's multifamily over there, isn't it?
It is, okay.
It's almost 20.
I mean, we were talking about the additional structure. I didn't know if it was a single family or multifamily.
So it is multifamily, but it's on a 25-foot wide lot, which only accommodates single-family residences, even if it's in a multifamily district. So it would be that detached structure would be an accessory structure or like a granny flat. It would not be able to be rented independently. It would have to be accessory to the primary.
And if I may, and I kind of wanted to hand it over to Jordan, because I think it's a very interesting conversation between distinguishing the old from the new. And we've seen a lot of interpretations from architects and historic preservationists. But I think kind of with the other concept plan review, we try to bring it back to our visual compatibility standards. Because although we understand it's important for it to be differentiated, our criteria still requires, the finishes, the openings, and all of that to still be consistent and compatible. So there might be a little bit of conflict once we review it against our criteria if it's such a stark difference in style. And the last thing I would add to that is, I think it's a scale of differentiation. So you could say, okay, I'm gonna have this addition, but I'm gonna make it consistent with wood frame vernacular, but maybe I'm interpreting it with, maybe it has something that looks like a wood shingle siding. So it's a different interpretation of that style. And from that scale, you can go on to all the way to it being a completely different style. But I think it's a nuanced conversation on what approach you want to take. But again, if it comes forward in a completely different style, it'll be a little bit difficult for us to make findings that in openings, exterior finishes, roof shapes, design, it's still consistent and compatible with that original frame structure.
With primary
Abraham, I
concern
think
given
that-
to the front facade. That was kind of
I
our
think
primary concern.
It's going from black to white. Is there an area maybe I'm just thinking Midwest. I don't know, but I agree with Abraham on the fact that it could be a little more compatible.
So that's kind of, and Abe kind of hit it appropriately, is that there are really two trains of thought on this in kind of the preservation realm. As you you completely differentiate in every way possible, or you make subtle differentiations. We've seen people do additions that had a slightly different stucco texture, or maybe had a score line, or used a different siding material, or maybe a slightly different window size to kind of differentiate the old from the new. So that was kind of our initial comments with the architect was, if you are going to do that, it doesn't have to smack you in the face. It can be a little bit subtle. But on the other hand, it can be completely different. So I think that's kind of why we encourage them to do the conceptual review, is to kind of get your all's take on, balancing that.
I think it can be different, but quieter, a little quieter than certainly the back end with the curvature.
Which won't be seen
Mr.
unless you.
Chairman, if I can add this thought as well, I remember you speaking about this on the last conceptual review, which was that the windows should be more vertical to replicate the pattern, the verticality of windows in the area. So even if it's in a modern style, and it's distinctly different, it should maybe think of replicating kind of those patterns. I was actually speaking of option A. If you look, it's a very horizontal kind of, it's just basically a square and a square that, that it could be a modern application of with some of the window patterns, textures and things, some of the comments that I believe you were making applicable to the previous one.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't tell from that rendering, but I would hope that single window, if that's a single window, is at least square, if not vertical. Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to speak for the owner, if I could. And I know that their preference would be the more modern look. I really appreciate some of the comments that everybody's given. What the chairman said, I believe, is very valid in the sense that to have a break between sort of the past and the front. Lake Worth is moving into another era, I think. A lot of people are moving in. There's a lot of new projects and a lot of things that have come before the board. The Gulf Stream itself is having a glass building built next to it, which is very modern. And I think that, this type of building, we can actually work the window patterns and the things into the modern structure to make it look, to keep the volumes, some of those window sizes the same, while providing something that's far back enough to give itself a different and removable type of look. And I really like the break in between the old and the new. That would give a very nice transition between both, like the chairman said.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I was just going to say that's my neighborhood, and I think there's actually some opportunity there to have dimensional compatibility and the variedness in there. There's buildings that are on the corner that are dimension style. There's lots of cottages there. There's a bunch of different architects there, and I think that you could pull off that and still differentiate it as well.
And please try and keep the overall height as low as you can. As I said, no parapets.
One other quick comment. In looking at the one with the flat roof, the drawing, well, even the rendering, if there were a way where you could, where that wasn't just such a blunt end, maybe it starts at a certain width and then it returns like basically a horizontal setback. There's a front piece and then it backs up a little bit and then it gets wider. So you're not just confronted with this massive wall right on top of the existing house, if that makes any sense.
Maybe that's why I was looking at the gable, but saying that's not enough of a differentiation
right
between the front structure, because that does kind of break up that block you're talking about.
I was looking at, there's the one elevation of there's that one scheme that was done that has a gable. Which one is this? I guess it's option.
can't tell.
I think he wants to see the option with the.
Option B, I guess, but from the side elevations, the long elevations, it almost looks like just, this gable looks like it could be a big kind of clear story, a big skylight, right? Capping off the thing. So it reflects the shape of the roof of the house in front, but it drops down to a flat roof building on either side. Although when you look at it, when you actually look at it in elevation, it doesn't exactly do that. It's continuous width of the thing. I'm just looking for, you can step back the mass of it.
Yeah.
So it's not so overwhelming.
Just needs to calm down a bit.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, have we exhausted our 20 minutes on this project and we have another one to go to? Is that correct?
We don't have another one, but
We do.
Oh, we do. I lied.
Yeah, we had one added. I'm sorry.
222 South Lakeside.
So, Mr. Chairman, you all have concluded your presentation. Mr. Compton, did you have any questions?
No, thank you for your comments. We look forward to working with staff a little bit and review all of your comments and try to get this back in and work with our client to get this to fruition.
Thank you, Juan. Thank you, Fontaine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cotton. Yeah.
Thank you very
bold
much.
design.
Thanks.
All right, so let's just give us 1 second.
Last one tonight, guys.
Just give me a moment.
We're coming on to 222 South Lakeside.
Okay. So this one's going to be a little bit different than the other ones. So this just pertains to a roof replacement. So here is the picture of the property before the roof replacement with the asphalt shingles. And let me switch to the other photographs. So this property was in for permitting with us. We issued an administrative certificate of appropriateness. Before the permit was issued, I had a little bit of back and forth with one of the contractors or someone representing the company regarding the specific material. So within the historic districts, administratively, we've been able to approve metal roofs in frame buildings. And our precedent for that has been that, and we still have examples that you can see in real life, a lot of times they had metal shingle roofs and they were unfinished, so they had the natural mill finish that's intrinsic to the material. I actually did go through the property file, and that is the roofing material that this property had. So it was eligible, administratively for us to approve a metal roof. We essentially use 2 conditions of approval typically when approving these metal roofs. One is that it has a seam that's 1 inch or less in height. Again, when you start getting into those higher seams, they're usually for commercial applications, and we always approve them with a mill finish. So for this application, we did have that conversation. Initially, we received a product approval for a metal roof that had a higher seam than that 1 inch. So we resubmitted with the product that you're seeing here. We also had the discussion about the mill finish. One of the contractors or someone representing them will join the conversation shortly, but it appears there was some type of miscommunication. So this is what was installed. I can bring up some.
Yeah, so like Abe was saying, we rarely regulate color in the historic districts unless color is intrinsic to a material. To give you an example, the flat white concrete tiles that we saw on almost all of our masonry buildings from the 40s and 50s, those were always white. So when someone goes to install them, we require them to be white. If in some instances, people are replacing steel casement windows, we may require those to have a clear anodized finish because color of the frame is important to the product. So for metal roofs, like Abe was saying, our metal roof history here in the city was for metal shingle roofs back in the 20s and 30s, typically on frame buildings. And those were always a galvalume finish or a silver mill finish. So that is what we have always approved administratively. We really haven't gotten requests for metal roofs with color options. You all actually did get one last year for a property on South Palm Park, and they were requesting a copper roof. That was denied because a metal roof was inappropriate for that building, but also because the copper collar was inappropriate. So like Abe was saying, they were issued a certificate of appropriateness for a galvalume silver roof. So what we're kind of asking is, what is our leeway on roof finishes? Because this is not a silver roof.
So as he was saying, up until this point, we've only approved mill finishes. So really our question with this concept is if administratively staff can start looking at different colors. If so, we would want, to hear from you a range, or if anyone's deviating from that mill finish, if you would like to see that as a case before you. And if that's what you decide, then that's what this applicant would have to pick. Do I, fix it to the mill finish, or do I want to come back, in a month or so to substantiate why, this color is appropriate?
Are you asking us to do the same thing with roofs as we did with windows then?
How so?
In other words, we made a rule about windows being,
well,
that should we make roofs be within a certain color span or what?
So it was it's really kind of no, we're not trying to, like, for asphalt shingles, people can choose whatever color they want. But like I was saying, for materials where color is intrinsic to that material, like a flat white tile roof or a metal roof, our history of metal roofs is with a silver mill finish, and that's all we've ever approved. So that kind of is the rule. So what Abraham is asking is, because this was installed incorrectly or not according to the administrative certificate of appropriateness, is this something that we can administratively issue a revised COA for, or do they need to come before the board? And is this something that we're willing to talk about, willing to play with, or is this outside of the realm of what we can approve?
And I think from staff's perspective, our indication was that it should go to you for anything other than the mill finish. But we wanted to see what you all thought.
I mean, is this something like I already bought my windows and they're tinted blue?
So they were issued a certificate of appropriateness administratively for roof replacement for a roof with a galvalume, like silver mill finish. But the darker roof material is what's already been installed.
And I just want to say we have Jamie here with us, representing the contractors, if you have any questions for her directly.
Is the roof, what color is this roof?
It looked blue.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was too. Was that just a film on it, or was?
Looks charcoal to me.
Right, but if you go back one slide.
Yes, so let me switch. We have.
Is that the same roof?
Yeah. That earlier slide, it was a blue roof.
Yeah.
Navy blue.
Maybe that's.
One further away.
Maybe it's reflecting the sky there.
We can clarify, Jamie, if you can clarify what the exact color is or the name of the color.
They're muted.
I think we need to move them over if they're not moved over.
Okay, she just unmuted.
It is a dark bronze is the color on the roof, and that is, my apologies. There was some miscommunication between my permit runner who was dealing with Mr. Abraham in regards to this and going to the mill finish, which would be the galvanized. The homeowners did not want the galvanized. They did not like it. They preferred, they said it looked like a warehouse. So miscommunication down the line, they chose the dark bronze. They're also going to go, I guess, in front of the board to also have dark bronze window frames put in as well.
I mean, yeah, we haven't had that conversation. If
We haven't had that miscommunication yet.
So basically, you're requesting the board that giving you direction other than the standard. Now, how does the national look at the metal roofs for homes in the 20s, 30s, and 40s? Is there guidelines pertaining to color metal roofs?
So it's going back to the precedent. So if we just look at this one, we do have a property card and the drawings that tell us it was a metal shingle. All remaining examples we have of those, like we said, were, mill finish, had that silver appearance. They were not painted. Our question is are different options being opened up to staff, or whenever someone wants a color an actual color, not mill finish, should they come before you and present the merits of, why that's compatible, why that's approved? That's how we've done things. This is already installed. We just wanted to know, yes, should we just move forward how we've dealt with this in the past? Or, is there a different direction from the board?
I'd like to throw
Just
something in
checking
there.
in. That's all.
Can I throw something in there? I mean, it's let's just take asphalt shingle roofs. And you say there's a lot of different color variations in asphalt shingle roofs, and you leave that up to the homeowner to choose that. So therefore they could go anywhere from almost white or very light gray to any shades of browns or whatever, and it's totally up to them. And then when it comes to barrel tile roof, there's variations in that you allow normally I think we allow the homeowner to choose that if they're, even going to white. I mean, but you do bring that in front of us if they had a terracotta color and they propose to put white barrel tile on there, that would be something out of the ordinary, and you bring that to us. This is somewhere in between that, I think. But I don't necessarily say that it's, if this were to come in front of us, would it be automatically approved if somebody says, okay, they don't like that because it looks warehousey and they would like to see a color on there, and would the board pretty much just say, yes, that's what they approve?
I'm going to be inconsistent and say, I just want to move forward from this one. It's installed, and if that is bronze and not blue, but I do think in the future that any color other than the silver mill finish is something that should come in front of the board.
Well,
and for what it's worth, a lot of those original roofs have been painted since then.
Yes.
With a silver or whatever.
Just process-wise, we want to understand because I guess it puts us a little bit in a bind to administratively approve one thing for one applicant and not others, since this is not coming to you as an item, but just as a concept.
Yeah.
Is there any merit
So at this point, what you're saying is that you would want to bring this back to us for a retroactive approval?
Well, that, or you're okay with us approving dark bronze for everyone administratively? Because I can't administratively say it's okay for you, but not okay for you.
Right.
Yeah, I think this needs to come back to the board. If the board direction is mill finish, unless there's an exception, then you all have to approve the exception. That's how our process is structured. And I'd be very uncomfortable letting staff have that discretion. That's why we have a historic preservation board, is for you all to make those choices as a board, and that's the process. So I would say if you're comfortable with staff making these decisions, maybe in a limited palette, then we would maybe next time get the direction on the palette, and maybe that palette could include dark bronze, maybe dark bronze, white, you know, or just bring this back as an individual case, and anything that's the exception to the rule will go to you as our standard process is right now. No change.
And it can be a combo. This can come back as an item. And if you want to continue the discussion on metal roofs and you want us to put together a short presentation, pulling examples and all of that. So if you want to.
There are some board comments, if you want to hear.
Yeah, my question is there merit into determining what colors would have been available in that time frame for a metal roof? You know, like you're saying already that typically in that time frame of the 1920s, or for that house, it was only the mill color, but was bronze or whatever even available? So if it's not a historically compatible color.
Yeah, right. So that's a good question. It's not something that we've done a tremendous amount of research on, but I know that some South Florida cities that had a more in-depth history of metal roofs, we can reach out to their preservation planners and see if they have any information on the topic. But as far as we've seen, the surviving examples here in the city are typically the silver mill.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, I can attest. My house is 1939, and when we bought it, it had the metal shingles on it. And I heard stories from my next door neighbor of how the guy would get up there, once a year or once every other year with a steel brush and brush it and then paint a silver put a silver paint on there all the time. And that was legend in my little neighborhood there. And now we have a mill finished 5 crimp metal roof on the same structure. It looks okay.
Do we have a representative from the Galvalume people? Is it a terrible sacrilege to paint this?
Mr. Chairman, I think from a staff's perspective, I think we'd like to do some research. Or you're saying for this current product, not on whether they were historically painted. I apologize.
Yeah, he was asking the contractor.
I misunderstood. Jamie?
Yes, the metal roof, you couldn't paint it. That's the way that it is produced. There's thousands of colors now. I wasn't aware that this was going to be an issue. I didn't know this was in a historic part of Lake Worth. So again, my deepest apologies. There was a lot of miscommunication between the permit runner and us in regards to the mill finish. Otherwise, I would have come to you guys first. I would have went in front of the board and asked. This is what the homeowner wanted, was to have a little darker of a roof. They didn't like the shingles. And then if they wanted to go back shingles, she wanted to go back onyx black. And obviously Mike, the inspector, told us that wasn't even an option.
That's not correct. So as Jordan was saying, we're not regulating the asphalt shingles. However, whenever we do issue those, we always have a recommendation that you choose the lightest option available for energy efficiency purposes.
As long as we don't tell people what color to paint their house or, like basically what color shingles, why are we then going on to metal roofs?
Historically, they were silver.
I think staff would prefer to continue this item and come back. I think a free-for-all on colors, because like the contractor stated, there is a smorgasbord of colors out there. You could get a hot pink roof. which
Right.
would be contextually inappropriate.
Well, I think that
for-
should be, yeah,
So
correct.
I think that maybe, and that's not something staff would feel comfortable administratively approving. Quite frankly.
Mr. Dorinzo, yeah, Mr. Dorinzo, what were you saying?
Maybe that should be the color of the historic district signs, hot pink instead of brown.
So
But
why
they
don't
are
we,
posted all over town.
if I can make a recommendation, why don't we have the applicant bring this back as an item for your approval? We'll bring back the discussion at the next meeting. Staff will perform some research, not only on the historic application, but also paint colors that maybe were typically used to restore roofs after they were installed, to seal them. We'll bring that to you, and you all can decide if you'd like staff to administratively approve within a color palette, or if you would like to have that choice of color palette for anything other than a mill finish.
Yeah, my opinion would be that anything other than mill finish should come in front of us. Do you feel that way?
Yeah. And a historic.
I'm seeing 3 nods, yes, 4 nods, yes. And I don't know how Mr. Dorinzo and Ms. Fox feel, but that seems. to be-
Yes.
Okay, well, so all of us seem to be saying that anything other than a mill finish should come in front of us.
Wonderful. Then staff will bring back the applicant's case if they'd like to move forward with that specific request to you. And we will not schedule a workshop on the roof color at the next one. We will continue our existing process of bringing color requests to you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is that the end of the planning issues?
That is, Mr. Chairman, unless you have any questions for staff.
Nope. Let's move on to public comments. Hearing none, let's move on to department reports.
We have no department reports this evening, Jordan, unless you do.
We do. We have, Abraham, are you?
Yeah, just a sec.
We just have one notice for you.
What is that notice?
It's a demolition notice.
Yeah, it's a condemnation notice from the building official.
For the project that we just reviewed?
No, it's for a separate one.
Incidentally, personal opinion on the one we reviewed, I would certainly be in favor of a demolition for that existing house.
I believe the building official agrees with you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, it's a shame. It was a nice house, but it was just beyond repair.
I will say, just to kind of clarify process, owner initiated demolitions will come to you as a formal item. And again, for contributing resources, if an owner is initiating a demolition request, they also have to come forward with a simultaneous request for new construction so that you don't end up with an empty lot. But buildings that are condemned by the building official that's a condemnation order, and it's ordered to come down by the building official. So you'll receive a board notice, which is what this is. So this is a result of a condemnation by the building official.
Okay.
All right,
We're going to hear it now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So very quickly, this is located at 617 North K Street, currently a contributing property to Northeast Lucerne. Here we see the location. So on the west side of North K, between 6th Avenue North and 7th Avenue North. Here are some of the pictures from that inspection where we can see some of that damage and deterioration. On the right side, you can see the structure as visible from the street.
Can you speak up just a little bit, Abe?
Okay, I'm sorry. So I was just saying this is some of the damage that was captured during the building official's site visit. Kind of Jordan already touched on it. In our historic preservation ordinance, we have a small section on exceptions to receiving a certificate of appropriateness, and that includes condemnation of a property. And if it is contributing, we bring it to you as a notice, just so you're informed that that took place. Here is the building officials official condemnation. And as it states, there is a significant amount of termite damage. And there's some settling issues as well with the foundation and roof, a lot of rotted wood. So in his assessment, it's compromised and needs to be demolished.
Fine. Okay, we have been informed. Thank you very much.
Now that
That's
will
all
be-
I have, Aaron.
that doesn't have any requirement to have a new building built on it. That'll just become a vacant lot.
Yeah.
Correct. So it's exempt from a COA.
Okay. All righty. Any other departmental reports?
No, sir.
Any other board member comments?
I need to bring something up.
All right.
Okay, back on tint windows. I'd like to get a little clarification. Do we treat windows or only by exception, do we treat windows that are not visible from the street any differently when it comes to tint in the historic district? And
Sure. So it depends on the status of the building. So for a contributing building in the historic districts, we review changes in the round. So for contributing buildings, the VLT standard would apply to the entire building. Now for non-contributing buildings, the way our ordinance is written is that exterior alterations not visible from a public street do not receive a certificate of appropriateness. They don't even get reviewed by us if it's not going to be visible. So if you have a non-contributing building, which only has one street frontage, we would only review the windows that are visible. Otherwise, it wouldn't be reviewed.
Okay, now my next question when it comes to VLT is that this board and with staff's research came up with what we said it was appropriate at the time that would cover that clear glass with the minimum low E coating that would bring it into the 70%, would allow for that 70% that we all agreed on. I am
Chip,
getting.
if I could add a small clarification, what we said in the meeting was that the tint was equivalent to clear glass. Anything other than clear glass would require an amendment to the historic preservation guidelines. So what you did is before clear glass was the only thing permitted. And what you did is you allowed additional flexibility with the interpretation by defining clear glass to include a slightly darker shade of tint other than clear. So that's why
Which was low E and
Yes.
necessary to have the low E coating.
The clear low E, yeah.
The clear low E. Okay, now I am being told through outside sources I'm hearing talk of petition, and I said, well, petition doesn't mean anything. But anyway, that's why I'm bringing it up for the board and the staff, is that they're saying that the manufacturers are telling them that 70% is not the standard low E anymore. It goes down to around 65. Has anybody heard anything more than this, or is this just me?
So yeah, so I can speak to that. So in our experience, a lot of that low E that would meet that requirement is being phased out because a lot of the low E that is being offered is to meet the current energy code for new construction. So we're seeing that the industry is moving to stronger, low E coating that end up resulting on a diminished VLT. So as Aaron said, we got to that 70% because it's considered within the realm of clear. If as a board you say, okay, there's not really much of that offered, and we want folks to have that option, then we would look at what it would take to change our design guidelines so it's a fully available option. When we brought that before you, that's not what we were exploring. We were just trying to say, hey, this is what we can still consider clear. But what you're bringing up, Chip, is very true. That type of coating is being phased out to one that doesn't meet 70%. But you kind of have to weigh, the industry's going one way.
The industry's going extremely dark.
And you have to weigh that with historic, do you want to go where the industry is going, or do you recognize, that's not how our windows looked historically?
I was being taken to the woodshed, me personally, for the board, for everybody, they said that the industry at this time, the VLT would end up, the standard would be at 65%, and that if they wanted to go with the 70%, the cost difference would be appreciable. I don't know if it's substantial or whatever, but it was quite a big difference in cost to go to that 70%, which, like you say, is being phased out. So the question I've got, at some point, do we need to kind of look at this and possibly bring it back and maybe allow for the 65% because we're only talking 5%, or should we stick to our guns and keep it as clear as possible and allow a low E, even if it costs them quite a bit more to have that one coating available only?
And it's a moving target, Chip, because in 2 years, you might say, now they're at 60, now they're at 40, now they're at 50. So we're going to have to bring it back to the design guidelines and those historic requirements to see how those two things work together.
And I also think that we stopped the conversation because where the board ended the direction was that we would be okay with equivalent to clear, not a change in the design guidelines. If we're going to talk about a change in design guidelines, that's a lot of additional research staff needs to do, including contact the state as a certified local government. We need to look at the state, we need to look at the standards, make sure our standards are consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards. So some of those benefits, and we talked about some of those benefits as well that come with base flood elevation variance, some of those other things. So we need to balance all. There's always a give and a take in a historic district. And there's a lot of benefits to being historic, especially if you have a BFE requirement that we've touched on. So we wouldn't want that to lose that for some of our folks over tinted glass, I think.
I feel rather strongly about keeping it clear. I see us going down that slippery slope of 65 and 60 and 50.
Right.
It is absolutely historically inaccurate. So if it means not allowing low E glass in the future, then maybe that's it. Maybe the applicants go to thermopane or double glazing or something or other to maintain it.
And there's always blinds and curtains. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Not to make light of anything, but.
No, and EGADS, I told them what they can do. They can tint their windows after they've been installed. Who am I to say what they can do on the inside? Well, and that is also, I'll tell you what, that is also because people are watching these meetings on YouTube and they wanted clarification. That's why I wanted to bring it up. And I want to say, look, this is what is part of being in a historic district. And that is as clear, pardon the pun, as we can make it, that we want as clear glass as possible. The only caveat is if everybody on here said with consistency that if the industry is going a different way, which is what I'm being told, and what you're kind of confirming, that the standard clearest low E does not meet the 70%, and that's a special order, and we're going to keep it at that. I'm fine with that. I mean, that's what the board wants.
Yeah, and like you said it perfectly. The easiest response to that is when you looked at it, you're providing clarification. If at any point you want more research and you're interested in amending the design guidelines, we will do so. But at that time, that's not what we were doing. We were just clarifying what they already said.
So I just want to add one more thing, and I just want to talk about our historic districts and the investment we've been experiencing in them. And I think in part because your consistent application and really the quality of architecture we've been seeing in the districts, we really saw in our building permits, our historic district led investment in the city prior to investment in other areas. And we've also seen tremendous growth and property values in those districts as well, which is consistent with data on property values going up more quickly within historic districts than outside of historic districts. So we've seen the positive impacts of applying the historic guidelines in a consistent way. So I would just say, let's move forward, appreciate those property value gains, appreciate kind of the the flexibility in application of the floodplain regulations that come with the district. And I'm not speaking, I know you guys know this, I'm kind of speaking also, like you said, to the broader audience. There's a lot of benefits from being in a historic district. It does come with balance, so.
Yes,
Well
thank you very
said.
much for that clarification.
Well said. Any other board member comments?
I have one, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Duranzo?
You know, it gets a little aggravating when we get as a board. I didn't know I was in a historic district, or the contractors with, I had no idea this home was in a historic district.
Yeah.
You know, we have signage. It's not like these historic districts came up yesterday or during the pandemic or something. I don't know. Is there a way as a municipality we can inform every homeowner, maybe in their utility bill, in the little newsletter or something? Are you in a historic district, and maybe put a little map?
Right.
Or what it pertains to? Are they, I don't know how to address that.
Right. And I'll say that when I started here, we didn't have signage in the historic districts, and that was a very common problem. And you remember that, you were on the board then. That was half of our cases. I didn't know I was in a district. But since then, we've done all of the street topper signs telling people what district they're in. We've done all of the brown signs, and then the CRA has put up their own historic district signs. So I get it, but at some point it is just an owner's due diligence to know. And I don't know how to do that.
I will add, if I can, all of our mapping online, including our zoning map, as well as our historic district map, tells people, it's very easy. You click on your property and it tells you if you're in a historic district, what historic district you're in, and then it gives some indication of whether your property is contributing or not contributing. So there's an interactive map on the website that you can just go look up. So there's a lot of tools on our website. If you see the sign, you can self-help a lot in this area.
It's a great map, and I applaud it. I told 2 people to go to it this week. Question: when these contractors come in, for instance, for windows, are they told at that point that they would need the certificate of appropriateness? This house is in a historic district, all of that.
It's actually interesting. It's been a little bit of a complaint that the girls that work for building are not taking it. They're actually saying, hey, you don't have a COA application. I'm not going to take your permit in right now.
Okay.
So right at the forefront, you know what's going on. And
I will say there are some that get through. You know, we occasionally have to fail an application, you know, immediately when we review it for lack of a COA application. But I would say that overwhelming majority come in with one. So they know.
So there's that first safety net. Then it comes to us. We're the first stop on the permit.
Right.
And then we're failing it. Then that's when we start the communication. Like I mentioned, hey, contractor, the product you submitted has these, and then, you know, we get the ball rolling. And then somehow that's not enough sometimes.
I think a lot of the times conversations between the contractor and the applicant are very feeble. So the contractor might be submitting things that that he hasn't made the applicant aware of.
I would agree with that. And it's tricky because the owner signs the designation of agency to the contractor to deal with us. And that's when it's hard. They're our primary point of contact, but maybe that communication is not getting back to the other contractor or the owner. So.
Right. Okay.
Thank you. Question on that is for the permit application, is the historic district item put on like a checklist for the application? Like, is there some way you can do that? I would assume there's a checklist for making the application, putting the application together. Is that?
So go ahead, Bob.
That's the certificate of appropriateness. That's why the girls hand them back the application.
Okay.
Yeah. So we do have the building department has checklists for most things. If someone wants to put on a new roof, there's a building department checklist. There's also a COA checklist for properties in the historic districts that are typically dispersed out with a COA application depending on the request.
If you click on the building permit app, the tile, I believe, go back.
Thank you, Aaron.
Steve's question. So if you go to that and then go down, you got to select the building permit again. So if you go down, it might be on the other page.
Might
No,
be
no,
too soon.
I'm thinking you have to go further down, but
Yeah.
Is it under work location?
so I thought there was a question in there, and if there's not, that's something we can easily add.
I think that would be good to add. So we'll follow
Yeah.
up and just say,
Yeah.
you know, check if are you in a historic, do you, you know,
Make
That-
it the top question.
Maybe
That-
it provides a link to the map or something.
There you
Unfortunately, we know it will be skipped over, but it's yet another safety net. I think that will hopefully help.
Yeah. Just trying to avoid, I already bought my windows or doors.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah, that is not an acceptable excuse.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, any more comments? Then we are adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you,
you
Mr.
all.
Chair. Thank you, staff.
Thank you.
Yep.
Take care.
Wonderful.